Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description. Deadly Drinking Pirate by Darren. Ace was wondering about that sake he stole from those pirates before allowing his little brother Luffy drink it when they became brothers. And now Luffy has gained a new ability, one that defies the laws of devil fruits and yet makes him even stronger than before. Watch this drunk-proof pirate become the king of them all. Mature Luffy duel. Devil fruit. Luffy/Harim, I don't own anything, adios.
You better leave that alone. Luffy spoke up again. Nola is a little grouchy with all our noise. Both Wiper and Nami widened their eyes at what could only be the largest snake they ever seen. Well, got any more to nag me about? Zoro turned his attention to whatever has silenced the ex-captain and swallowed his words too. And you will too when you gaze upon what could only be a house-sized south bird. Greeting intruders. We have found your vessel that you stole from us to be our sacrifice to God Almighty. The Straw Hats got on tense and spotted a strange pair dancing on the opposite railing. And we have been sent to take it back, as well as revenge. These two looked a lot like the dumpling priest, Satori. It's far too late to worry about that, intruders. Bah, the Straw Hats turned to see what seemed to be a human dressed in strange white robes, weird shoes and goat horns on his head. God Almighty knew you were here when you invaded our clouds. Bah, and now that you are here on our holy land, it is time for your death, by our hands. Bah. That strange human proclaimed, and many more appeared from behind the giant trees. Oh, I was bored, that's all. Enel finally answered while playing with an apple, but also because of something that I am sure that the two of you already noticed. Shira and Satori apparently have been slain, and by the same intruder to our land. Satori was always the arrogant one with clear inexperience, but Shira, I never thought that airhead will ever go down. Om responded with clear disdain for the former but a slight respect for the latter. Gedatsu just sucked on his lips once again, and the bearded subject pointed it out again. Of course, as expected to hear from my truly strongest commander. Enel spoke back. Those two will not be missed, as God's power will never be damaged or defied. Enel then whispered to the handmaidens to peel him an apple to eat. Yet what I truly wanted to announce is that the vessel has been completed. It will time to leave for the land that gods live in, the fairy Vareth. Speechless, are we, back on the going merry. The two lookalikes started to laugh and dance around. We must have scared you silly, foolish mortals. Good. Not scared, just confused. Usopp spoke up, with his hand on his trusty rifle and ready to fire. I could have sworn that you were that dumpling who dances on white balls in the forest. Are you two his biggest fans, because your uncanny resemblance just makes you look more disgusting. He is our big brother, and you lot killed him, the other said, and the Straw Hats got on guard. It was clear where this was going. Here, we will get our revenge. Sorry, but you have the wrong people. Nijiko spoke up, with a pair of daggers hidden in her hands. Your brother was killed, but the killer is not here. You should check out the forest because I last saw him go that way. Nami's sister stared them down with the fresh memory of what that dumpling was going to do to her until Luffy bisected him without mercy. She was not going to be helpless this time, and she will replay her captain. Doesn't matter, you all are going to die because of God Almighty's prophecy. Those two started to laugh manically while the Straw Hats got ready for one big fight. XXXXX meanwhile, tell me I am not dreaming. Wiper said in a deadpan tone. Please, I must be having a nightmare. I am not riding the Lord of the Sky like a kid on a horse. Unfortunately, he was, and he had to stare at the backside of Luffy with his girl riding both the snake and her boyfriend's lap. Save your breath for Eneru, Wiper. Luffy responded, not even bothering to face the native to the sky. Once he is dead, then you can get back to your people, and this never happened. Fine. Wiper clammed up and just kept an eye out for whoever will see him like this. If they should even snicker, they will get burned really bad from his bazooka. Still, this day won't improve when they did get company from Wiper's own gang of rebels. Not one word. But Wiper, why are you with them? One of them appeared to have a large bandana covering his eyes and asked with real concern. And how the hell did that intruder tame the Lord of the Sky? He flinched along with the others when the giant snake glared at him, only to calm down when Luffy rubbed her head. Her name is Nola. Luffy spoke seriously, and all she wants to get back to her home so you can relax. Nola won't eat any of you if you behave. The rebels were wondering why they were letting a boy with a straw hat talk them down like children on a field trip. Now then, I have one small favor to ask. Luffy said, which got the Sandians' attention. However, they will come to dread what Luffy suggested. Could you please let Nola swallow you whole? XXXXX deep within the forest. I can't believe that the mountain bird took off with Moss Head. I hope that a south bird doesn't get infected with his terrible sense of direction. Kuro mumbled while not really annoyed that he was now with Robin instead of Zoro. The dark-tanned women giggled even harder at the thought. Yes, I picture the poor bird walking in circles while still facing south. Robin imagined either the bird with Zoro's face or vice versa getting nowhere while trying not to twist its own head off. But she will fantasize on her own time. ESC purely when they uncovered some old ruins. Beautiful. I suppose. Kuro could only respond to that and stuck with Robin to make sure that her observations will not be disturbed. Unfortunately, even he couldn't count on that happening so soon. A mountain of a man landed out of nowhere and slammed his feet on some ruins, shattering them. Kuro could only tell that Robin was not happy with that act, not that the large man seemed to care. I am the commander within God's army, Yama. Bah. Yama is an obese man with a triple chin. He has a round body shape with long wavy black hair and tanned skin. He has bags under his eyes and thick lips. He wears a white toga with black vertical stripes, 3 on each side. Over his toga he has an orange sash, connected by strings, and has red lining and dark orange vertical stripes on it. Yama wears gold bracelets on both his wrist and has wings on his back. In the name of God Almighty, any and all intruders shall be killed. Shut up, a woman was having her fun and you stomped on those ruins with your heavy shoes. Kuro retorted and had his cat claw blades ready. And tell me that you do not feel the anger coming from Robin? Anyone who will bother about some stinking old stone is nothing but a freak. And you should save your breath before I kill you all. Yama definitely was a bully. And yet even he saw the darkened look on Robin's face. Kuro-kun is correct. These ruins have history, they cannot be replaced and you shattered them anyways. You will pay. Robin spoke slowly and crossed her arms to use her powers. Women can never stand up to men. Yama gathered whatever nerves has left in that massive lard he calls a body, and drew out a large sash that had 10 dials attached to one side facing away. Take this. Jurin Akusu, 10-fold axe. With agility not to be expected of his size, Yama rolled towards the pair of pirates with the grace of a gymnast. Kuro knew what those dials could down with a couple of trees were sliced and diced without even brushing against that interesting weapon. But Robin couldn't care less about that when she used her powers to reverse the dials on the sash at the moment when Yama couldn't switch them. He instead landed on a tree, feeling the power of his own dials. Robin walked over and with some extra limbs, she forced Yama's bruised face up. You destroyed what couldn't be replaced. History is in danger of being erased by selfish and ignorant people like you. I am not asking you to understand, but I love history with a passion and I hate those who disgrace it. Sorry, I am sorry. Yama tried to speak in pain with a lame apology that made even Robin cringe. I won't do it again. Too late, you have committed a terrible crime. Robin was in no mood for mercy, and Yama just didn't take no for an answer and actually grabbed her by the waist with his mountain-sized hands. Only for him to howl in pain when his arms were slashed terribly. I was once a captain feared on the blue sea. Kuro's voice echoed in Yama's ears, even through the pain. Until I met a young boy who bested me and yet spared me too and asked me to sail with him. And my captain's orders are to prevent harm to the fair lady, so hands off. Robin felt a little safe but had no time to relax as the job is not done yet. She created a vine out of extra arms and hands to lift Yama off the ground and got ready to swing him. Robin had to feel some of those bones break because of the sheer size and weight. Torin to Fururu. Hangu, trying to fleur. Hang, and Kuro. He appeared crunched on a nearby tree and vanished right when Yama started to roll towards a cliff like a bowling ball released by a player's grip. The mountain of a man lost his voice when thousands of more cuts appeared on his entire body. I must say that you got me an early birthday present, so thanks for the dials. Kuro appeared again and in his hand was the same sash with 10 dials attached. And Yama could only watch in horror as his own weapon was used on him yet again. And he also saw Robin with her arms still in position to attack. Dos Fururu. Karachi, Dose Fleur. Clunch. The forest echoed with the sound of bones breaking followed by a large thud. Both the pirates couldn't sense any life from their foe and started to move on. And Robin, she turned to Kuro and said, "Thank you." XXXXX above the forest this time. Let go, goddammit. I told you that it has no food. Zoro shouted manically, hanging on for dear life as his backpack was in the claws of the giant south bird. For some reason, the massive avian creature thought that it was something to eat and tried to fly away with it, but Zoro wanted it back. Too bad that he was dragged away for the killer ride. The extra weight didn't bother the giant bird and it finally took a good feel in the backpack with its beak to find it indeed bare of food. So, it abruptly released the cargo, almost as much as it seized it. Stupid bird! Zoro shouted to the top of his lungs and braced for landing with some black shining around his upper body. The fall was short and Zoro was glad to have used Toughen himself when he landed into a pile of debris, and rolled off onto some clouds. Damn bird! Just wait until Luffy hears about this. Zoro remembered tenderly about when he witnessed a seagull snatch away his captain like his head was food while they both were still in the East Blue. And while he groaned and tried to get to his feet, with the clouds not helping, Zoro was being watched. It was a massive creature that let out the growl of a hound dog catching the scent of an intruder, which interrupted its nap. I know, holy. Yet a voice came and settled the beast. I assure you that this intruder, like the others, will fall to the might of God's army as we prepare for his prophecy to come true. With only 5 still standing, spoke to the creature and grinned with a sadistic smirk. XXXXX elsewhere. Bah! The man with a goat yell and horns let out a whimper before falling unconscious. His knocked-out body joined the cloud field littered with them, and all of them had a steaming mark somewhere on their bodies, in the form of a reindeer hoof. Speaking of whom, even your numbers didn't change a thing. Chopper reigned over his downed foes in his master form while Jin, Carol and Frank were enjoying the feeling too. But seriously, just how do they do it? How do they look like goats but talk? It may be an island in the sky, Chopper, Jin spoke up. But we technically are still in the Grand Line, so don't ask how, it just is. And the truth hurts all the same. But seriously, you just bolted off our scout ship? I wish you will make up your mind, even if you were the captain's little brother. Jin mumbled to himself and Chopper just laughed sheepishly. Hey, look over there. Jin suddenly spotted something that grabbed his attention and he bolted towards it. His companions tried to catch up while screaming for the man-demon to slow down. That is, until they stopped to see a real change of scenery. It was where the forest eventually ended and even the ground turned back to clouds. But the vast debris littered around made it look like a swamp, but without the smells and the bugs. Just what is this place? Frank asked out loud when his senses picked up someone approaching with intent to harm, and so did his companions when they also got into a defensive stance. And out of the blue came Gedatsu, the foolish priest who appeared in God's living room, and yet he got into a serious stance and glared at the Straw Hats. I guess that you are one of the strong guys, underneath the boss, right? Jin responded while Frank kept his hand on Carol's and Chopper got himself ready for a fight. That's right. I am one of God's priests. Fear me. Too bad that Gedatsu's threat had zero impact since he mistakenly spoke it in his thoughts. This was evidenced by his mouth not moving and the suspense were making the Straw Hats tense and antsy. Say something already. Jin got too impatient and a goat-like soldier came out of nowhere and shouted. Lord Gedatsu, they can't hear you if you think to yourself. If you want them to hear you then you got to speak up. And the bizarre priest gasped silently with eyes wide open. You forgot to speak. Welcome to the Grand Line, everyone. Jin shouted off at how they got the most stupid foe of them all for their fight. XXXXX, damn it. Just how the hell did I lose the others after Wiper ran off on his own? There was just one more rebel in Upper Yard, one named Kamakiri. Kamakiri is a muscular, dark-skinned man with a mohawk hairstyle and a pair of big, round sunglasses with red lenses and white frame. He also has 2 big and colored earrings hanging from his ears. On his back he has a pair of classical wains. Kamakiri wears a grass skirt, similar to the ones worn by his companions, but with a red and green elaborate belt around the waist. He also sports a light red fur vest and a necklace that seems to be made of some animal's claws or teeth. Seriously, why'd I have to watch his bag just for it to disappear? All the more fun for me. The rebel froze and turned his head in a painfully slow motion to see the man from the throne in the clouds. God, Eneru. And I will acknowledge that you are the second biggest threat under the mortal Wiper. Because I am bored, I will give you one chance to try and kill me. And Eneru showed just how little he saw of his prey by relaxing into a nap on the tree he was resting on. But Kamakiri was not going to relax and took out his weapons. He thrusted his trusty spear through Eneru's chest, but it felt like stabbing air. He then tried to go for a more lethal approach and took what looked like a dial attached to a handle-sized wooden stick. Ban burrito, burn blade. The blade was a concentrated stream of fire and heat that sliced through the trees like a hot knife through a stick of butter, and Eneru. Kamakiri also used his spear to stab Eneru in the head. But still, it was like his foe wasn't even solid. He was a logia user and at the skill level of turning intangible even in a relaxed state. I told you, you had one attempt to kill me and you failed so bad that you tried another, with no better result. Eneru mocked Kamakiri. This is the difference between I and you, between God and an insect. This was enough to almost make the rebel lose hope and could have sworn to be staring at death in the face, only for death to stare back. Now it is time for you to die. Hey! That cut through the silence just like the burn blade did with the trees, and when both of them looked, they saw Luffy and Nami still riding on top of Nola. All 3 of them were staring at Eneru. Mind if we cut in? I told you, you had one attempt to kill me and you failed so bad that you tried another, with no better result. Eneru mocked Kamakiri. This is the difference between I and you, between God and an insect. This was enough to almost make the rebel lose hope and could have sworn to be staring at death in the face, only for death to stare back. Now it is time for you to die. Hey! That cut through the silence just like the burn blade did with the trees, and when both of them looked, they saw Luffy and Nami still riding on top of Nola. All 3 of them were staring at Eneru. Mind if we cut in? The Going Merry went along the white cloud stream without a hitch. Everyone was making sure that there was no more damage to the scout ship, especially what could ruin the repair job. Just who were those 2? And I thought I will never see another man that looked like a living dumpling after that damn priest from the forest of floating spheres. Usopp asked out loud and looked to his girlfriend who was leaning over the railing. Is Umi really that cute? Not as much as you, Usopp-kun, but you should see him when he eats, Kaya chirped, and Usopp sighed while looking over the rail to witness the Sea King eat with a mouthful. One that looked delicious considering that the meal happened to be those twins who landed on the Going Merry with intent to attack. Not that they lasted even 1 second when the Straw Hats all ganged up on them. So, how is the meat, Umi-kun? The giant eel-like creature looked up and made a smile while still munching on his 2 giant dumplings. There were hardly any bones to poke at his throat and hardly anything that could get stuck in his teeth. All in all, those 2 not only looked like living dumplings but tasted the same to the tamed Sea King. Yet the best part was having a big meal and being doted by a lovely lady. Umi had this hidden soft side considering his reputation back in the East Blue. I am very impressed in you Blue Sea dwellers. The voice of an old man was heard and everyone on board turned to see a familiar old geezer clad in knight's armor. But there was something else the Straw Hat Pirates noticed. It was the little girl wrapped in the cape being used a blanket. May I ask for a small, simple favor? XXXXX elsewhere in the upper yard, it was like a war zone. Trees were split, the ground was totaled and had combatants on both fighting sides witness something they never even dream of. The rebels and goat soldiers stared down on a figure wore a fancy pair of trousers with no shirt and a string of drums the back. This could only be one person. God Eneru? What happened? Did he get sent through those trees and landed here? One of the soldiers spoke in disbelief along with one of the rebels. He always thought the boss was untouchable and couldn't be harmed. Then another thought hit them. God Eneru was harmed and thus, is no longer untouchable. This means that the rebels will fight even harder to get their land back. Let's finish the job while he is done. Another rebel spoke up and the others raised their weapons at God Eneru who started to stir, hurt but still alive. The soldiers were ready to stop the rebels and the latter were about to strike God Eneru when a colossal thunderbolt shot off, firing every living being within 100 feet. Both the rebels and the soldiers were in the firing range. How, dare, cough asterisk. God Eneru struggled to speak as he struggled to emerge from the ground. He even had to use his golden staff to stabilize his footing, which is an insult on its own. How dare that blue sea maggot, touch me. God Eneru's eyes were bloodshot, like a rabid dog being denied of its food. He touched me, he harmed me. I am God. He felt something clog up his throat and God Eneru coughed it out, and in his hand was blood. And gods don't bleed. No, I am God and I will make that maggot pay for this outrage. Even if I have to destroy Upper Yard, he will pay. XXXXX. Where are you? That would have been an intimating demand, by a predator who lost his prey. But the former had to Gedatsu, with his eyes rolled up with the whites showing. Did they turn invisible? On the contrary, the Straw Hats were standing in plain sight, wondering how they were going to take such a fool serious as an assassin. Lord Gedatsu, you can't see anything if you roll your eyes to the back of your head. That same soldier still played the part of the character to point out what the main character is doing, which is foolish. And Gedatsu corrected his eyes with his usual shocked face. And like most arrogant fools when they accidentally embarrass themselves, they will try to do like so. I hope your little break was long enough because I was getting tired of your hiding. And Gedatsu was interrupted when a tonfa with a large iron ball attached hit him hard on the face. Even the Buddha's patience has limits, and I have none of it left for you shithole of a fucker. Jin truly had enough of this mockery of a mortal fight with the most foolish foe he ever came across. Then his senses screamed for him to move out of the way, and when Jin did, it was like a human-sized bullet whizzed by. The other Straw Hats barely dodged it as well, which was followed by the sound of a wall shattering. The jet dial, that was undoubtedly Gedatsu's voice and it sounded serious for once. It is powerful indeed, allowing you to move at speeds that are faster than the blink of an eye. Then the Straw Hats saw that the foolish priest had a smoking dial attached to his elbow that showed in a large hole in his sleeve. But I wish that it will not keep tearing out my clothes. Jin was truly impressed. Now we are talking, fucker. With an excited grin, Jin got both of his makeshift tonfas ready for battle. Bring it on. XXXXX, stupid bird. I am so going to cook him raw when I get my hands on. Zoro was not happy about being dropped out of the sky by that giant south bird. Mangy bird? He couldn't put his finger on it, but there was something here that made Zoro freeze in the middle of his speech. The swordsman just got to his feet, made sure that he had his 3 swords and kept an eye out for what has gotten his senses on alert. But Zoro barely got a step in when he felt something large trying a sneak attack on him. Holy stay. Zoro turned and had a sword out just to see an oversized yellow-white dog that apparently halted in mid-punch. It amazed the swordsman that a dog could get so big, learn to stand on 2 feet and even know how to throw a punch at all. He is loyal to a fault, but Holy needs to learn how to pick his battles better. It is as simple as the hair on your head, intruder, that you would have easily cut my steed in half. Zoro had no idea who this was. Whatever he was being praised or mocked, it was unclear. Just what the hell? The man chuckled. Took your breath away? I am honored. And the name is Ohm. He was the one who visited God Eneru with Gedatsu earlier. I am not only one of the 2 remaining priests under God Almighty. Along with that embarrassing fool, I am also a skybreeder. And holy is my pride and joy. Zoro swallowed his shock to get his head in the game. I am not here to gawk, now tell me where I am, Ohm smirked. Great, I won't waste any more time. You are in my territory, my trial, the ordeal of iron. Ohm responded and used a hand to direct attention to the sky. Once Zoro did, he nearly dropped his sword to see a cage suddenly placed around the vicinity. This cage is unlike any other you may have encountered. It may be made of clouds, but these are harder than steel, and witness what happens if you dare touch them. Ohm's sword suddenly turned to the shape of a fork, stabbed a piece of rubble to send it flying towards the cage while barely grazing Zoro. That caused the latter to see that the rubble had been sliced and diced by the cage. I sense that you still wish to fight and the only way to escape is to win. And the white fork blade shifted back to the shape of an actual sword blade. Zoro finally got out of his stupor and sported a placing his treasured white sword in his teeth and took out the rest of his swords, ready in his signature stance. Sounds like fun, and for once, you look like a worthy opponent. XXXXX, incredible. Kuro felt his breath taken away at the sight to behold. It wasn't long after both of them encountering that living mountain of an enemy who was hostile indeed, and his disrespect for those ruins he damaged had rubbed Robin the wrong way. It felt all the more satisfying to show him who's boss and send him rolling out of sight and maybe out of upper yard. Right now, that was pushed aside when they came across more ruins that littered a field of clouds. There was even a large green stalk far into the background. It was truly like something out of an adventure novel. Robin looked like she wanted to cry out of happiness. To her, it was a real treasure trove of history and things to discover. I never dreamed to see something so beautiful. Kuro didn't want to ruin her moment, out of this polite streak growing and not wanting to face his captain about it. Come on. Maybe there is something here about the City of Gold. Kuro placed a hand gently on Robin's shoulder and that got her head back on. She nodded and both of them jumped down to the clouds, for a rather soft landing. It was a silent but pleasurable tour of the ruins until they came across a certain wall that had markings on them. Kuro pointed out, "Don't these look like that drawing that the captain drew on the day you joined?" Robin was still speechless and nodded, her hand caressing the markings as if the wall was the face of a newborn infant. "Yes, they are." Robin finally spoke up and Kuro felt himself jump a little. "And they're saying so much about history, about this place before it was propelled up into the sky." Robin went on and on as she read more of the panegyals until she halted in her tracks. Kuro wanted to see what it was and saw that Robin's eyes were filled with shock. "What is?" Kuro tried to reach out to Robin again when his foot accidentally slid into the base of the wall. That didn't bruise anything, but instead, Kuro felt something that wasn't pain. It was like something responded to when his foot banged on the wall, an echo of sorts. Kuro somehow knew that something was nearby but out of sight of the naked eye. He tried with his senses and the world turned black. Black and filled with white outlines of the ruins. Kuro could see that clearly. It was like his eyes turned to that of a bat's. It was amazing to behold, and while he couldn't see the clouds in the sky, or any sky for that matter, Kuro could see that the green stalk was massive and tall. It was like an entire mountain contorted into a rope shape. Then he saw it. Underneath the field of clouds while following the giant stalk, Kuro saw the outline of an entire city. The buildings were like the ruins, made of stone and made to be sturdy and cubical. Then Kuro's sonar vision was cut short, yet he knew where to find the city. "Kuro-san." Robin finally tore his glance from the wall and noticed her companion staring at the cloud ground. "Robin. The City of the Gold is down below, previously on Deadly Drunken Pirate." It was a silent but pleasurable tour of the ruins until they came across a certain wall that had markings on them. Kuro pointed out, "Don't these look like that drawing that the captain drew on the day you joined?" Robin was still speechless and nodded, her hand caressing the markings as if the wall was the face of a newborn infant. "Yes, they are." Robin finally spoke up and Kuro felt himself jump a little. "And they're saying so much about history, about this place before it was propelled up into the sky." Robin went on and on as she read more of the panegyals until she halted in her tracks. Kuro wanted to see what it was and saw that Robin's eyes were filled with shock. "What is?" Kuro tried to reach out to Robin again when his foot accidentally slid into the base of the wall. That didn't bruise anything, but instead, Kuro felt something that wasn't pain. It was like something responded to when his foot banged on the wall, an echo of sorts. Kuro somehow knew that something was nearby but out of sight of the naked eye. He tried with his senses and the world turned black. Black and filled with white outlines of the ruins. Kuro could see that clearly. It was like his eyes turned to that of a bat's. It was amazing to behold, and while he couldn't see the clouds in the sky, or any sky for that matter, Kuro could see that the green stalk was massive and tall. It was like an entire mountain contorted into a rope shape. Then he saw it. Underneath the field of clouds while following the giant stalk, Kuro saw the outline of an entire city. The buildings were like the ruins, made of stone and made to be sturdy and cubical. Then Kuro's sonar vision was cut short, Yet he knew where to find the city. Kuro-san. Robin finally tore his glance from the wall and noticed her companion staring at the cloud ground. Robin. The city of the gold is down below. We are getting there, girl. Luffy rubbed tenderly on the giant snake herself. You will be home soon. Nola was more focused on slithering through the forest by the bark of the massive trees. But she still acknowledged her rider's affectionate rub by a gentle tremor. You are just too good with animals, Luffy-kun. Nami purred and tried to get a tighter grip on her boyfriend, not that it will hurt a rubber man. How can I compete with the world's biggest snake? Maybe we can try it after everything is done. Luffy acted coy and got both his girlfriend and Nola to blush something awful. As much as they wanted to bruise him, they just couldn't focus with the fantasies entering their heads. Sorry, I have to keep this as teen-rated. But we still have to be ready to face him. As much of a self-centered fool he is, that power of his is among the most dangerous there is. Luffy got serious and so did the present company did. Nola pushed herself to get to where their common foe is. All three stared off into the distance where a giant stalk was to behold. XXXXX at the cloud swamp, scatter. That was commanded for good reason. Gedatsu is finally fighting for real and he just sent another punch with the speed of a jet plane that shattered a cloud hill that was covered in litter, and it broke like a pile of glass to a sledgehammer. I am starting to get bored. Gedatsu spoke before activating dials on his shoes that propelled him into the air. Unless you can still keep this up, you will be killed by this. Numagumo Baga, Swamp Cloud Burger. Out of Gedatsu's palm came a really ugly cloud that descended rather quickly, except. Lord Gedatsu. I am an ally, don't aim at me. That soldier playing the straight man was the target instead of any of the Straw Hats. This caused Chopper to spring into action. As a doctor, he has this habit to help out anyone who needs help unless it is an enemy. And this soldier was hit by his own superior, who looked indifferent about it. What is that stuff? Carol was frightened. It looked like a cloud and the soldier acted like he was being eaten alive from it. Chopper tried to swat it but the thing was like a real cloud and touching a cloud was like catching a plume of smoke. It's a swamp cloud, as this land is a cloud swamp. One that I control is my ordeal. Gedatsu responded seriously, only that someone was shaking in frustration about it. Sure, it is a swamp, Frank said with his eyes darkened. You are sinking in it, indeed. The priest was, and as soon as Frank pointed out, Gedatsu was already up to his neck in the clouds. That really killed the mood. Fool! The priest shouted, a bit hypocritical, and emerged of the swamp at the speed of a rocket. I control this ordeal and the swamp can't kill me. Then the priest noticed Chopper doing a more physical approach to save the unfortunate soldier. Using brute strength to force the swamp cloud of the soldier's lungs. And if the swamp doesn't kill you, I will, Jeto Panchi, jet punch. The doctor looked up to the coming threat with barely any time to dodge and was about to reach for a rumble ball, maybe for his defense form. But that wasn't necessary when the punch only came in within a few inches of the target. Sorry dipshit. Jin was the one responsible and had the short end of his weapon jabbed in Gedatsu's chest, which really hurt with the speed generated by the jet dial. But hands off the captain's little brother. Luffy will go ape shit if you hurt our little doctor. Jin found it very satisfying to watch the foolish priest with a look of utter pain on his face. It was so bad that he didn't even notice the pistol pressed against his nose. This is gonna hurt, punk. Frank smiled sadistically and shot a round of his Bakuden no Iki no Dongon. Bomb breath bullets. The sound of bones breaking was heard yet again. And still, before the priest could respond, someone slammed a leg down on his head. This is for hurting our cute little doctor. Carol felt like old times, using his powers to manipulate her weight to float then crush. Sen Kuroramu Puresu, 1,000 kilo press. Normally she will go for her max of 10,000 kilograms but Carol wanted to save the finishing blow for Chopper, so she settled for a kick 10 times lighter. It didn't take any longer for Gedatsu to finally get his bearing together. I'm going to kill you for this insolence. The priest suddenly took off from Jin's proximity. All of you will suffocate in the name of WHAA. Suddenly, Gedatsu felt his flight off and started to soar irregularly. What the hell is going? And while he was disorientated from the experience, Gedatsu then spotted what was the cause. Jin had stolen one of his boots with the dials on. Damn you. And when Gedatsu tried to stable himself, a shadow had covered him. No, damn you. It was Chopper, in his master form. You are the most pathetic enemy I have ever faced and nearly killing one of your own men was bad enough. But as a doctor, I can never forgive anyone who will strike a man who can't fight back. Gedatsu was not only frightened by Chopper's appearance but there was something in the latter's eyes that scared the former witless. You will pay for that. Sakuraro Zudo Saperaru, Sakura Rose Hoof Spiral. Chopper not only stayed airborne for the whole time but also spun a 180 and landed a spiral kick landing on the priest's back. The sound of bones snapping echoed on the cloud swamp, and the witnesses cringed. Yet the priest landed rather softly into the cloud but he was as stiff as a bone, not going to be moving anytime soon. Afterwards, for an idiot, he sure has quite the equipment. He won't notice it's missing if he can't notice that he talks through his lips or when his eyes are facing the back of his head. Jin was having a little too much fun looting the downed priest. Thankfully Frank shielded Carol's eyes when the man-demon started to tear off the ugly underpants. Glad you think so, sir. That unnamed soldier decided that it wasn't worth sticking with a man that is somehow an idiot and a tyrant at the same time. He settled for the simple name, Kumo, and wanted to be of a help to the Straw Hats. Back-ins joined pirates when the grass looks greener on the other side of the fence. Now then, those are the jet dials and the ones on the boots are milky dials. They can produce the same type of cloud that we are standing on. Jin heard that and snatched the dials off the boots, the one he already had in his hand and the one still on the priest's foot. He gave one of them a slight press and a cloud big enough for a human infant came out. It was blown away by a stray gust. Jin tired it again but with a press hold and a stream of clouds came out. Sweet. And these? Jin tucked away the milky dials and pointed to the ones he found in the gloves. Swamp dials. Kumo answered with a pinch of venom. Anyone who nearly suffocated on a swamp cloud would be bitter. Those are similar to the milky dials, only they make swamp clouds that are much heavier, and since they are clouds, it is harder to get off. The Straw Hats looked at each other and nodded. They are going to keep these out of sight from Kumo. They may be pirates but they learned better from their captain to be respectful with their new comrades. And that is everything, Jin said, and just as he released his grip on the priest, the body sank completely into the swamp. They were silent for a moment before the realization hit them. Their foe fell through the clouds and is probably falling 10,000 feet to the surface. That is going to be one mean crash, not that it matters anymore. Let's go and see if we can find the others. And just like that, Jin led the gang and their new friend away from the swamp. They are sure to forget about the fate of their foolish foe. Everyone else is sure to do so, which is a bit sad. XXXXX at the ruins closed off by a cloud cage, holy, punch to the right. Ohm commanded his steed and the giant dog did so. Zoro was just too fast to be hit that way. Only that the swordsman jumped to dodge the simple attack. Good boy. I've got him. The priest already sensed that Gedatsu had fallen but never cared for any of his fellow priests, not even his rivals but annoyances with the same title. So, his battle focus didn't even twitch. He just followed Zoro and moved his giant sword as if a whip. Zoro saw it coming and got ready to counterattack until the end of that strange weapon turned into a hammer and sent the swordsman into a pile of ruins. It was only a moment when Zoro got out, bruised and even more angry. I'm impressed a bit, you are tougher than you look. Ohm still stood casually in front of his foe, not even a smidge of dirt on himself. Just what the hell is that thing you are swinging around like a bandit's club? Zoro had already lost his cool after having to put up with the giant dog and a priest whose weapon just can't stay one shape for 5 minutes. My weapon is an iron cloud. And clouds don't stay the same shape, and thus my sword does not limit to blades. Ohm calmly explained in a tone that was rubbing in Zoro's face. Then the priest stabbed forward his weapon that transformed into a giant fork that forced Zoro to use his 2 main blades to block it by the 2 spaces between the prongs. Yet the swordsman couldn't even hold his ground with the block and was sent into an old wall. Surely you can do better. Ohm talked Zoro down with sadism and disappointment. You want better, Zoro huffed, straining his arms to keep the middle prong from piercing his chest. But he was able to turn his arms black with haki, causing them to budge a bit, and with that boost of strength, the swordsman was able to break free from the iron cloud fork by breaking the prongs. Yet Zoro was not done yet. Onigiri, demon cutter. Aizen Baku. Aizen back, Ohm commanded of his sword calmly, and the iron cloud took the attack while pushing Zoro back again. Interesting. That somehow seems related to our mantra. Too bad that you need more tricks if you still want to win. Zoro suffered no damage but never did his opponent. I bet that you want the Aizen dial in my sword that is truly responsible for the ever-changing shape of my blade. There are barely any other Aizen dials in existence. I should call myself lucky. Luck means nothing in a battle, only power and skill and instinct. Zoro retorted. I don't have time to waste believing in luck. The swordsman got the iron cloud of him, but this time, Zoro stepped on top of the block. Sorry, but this match is. With a sadistic smirk on his mouth, Zoro vanished from his spot. Ohm finally lost his cool, and before he could even twitch, his chest burst open with blood. Over. Ohm gritted his teeth at the pain and humiliation. Zoro moved at a speed that the former could see but couldn't bring himself to dodge fast enough. The priest turned painfully slow to where his foe was, and tried to raise his sword at Zoro. Yet, the white iron cloud suddenly left the handle and rose as a harmless regular cloud. Ohm watched in horror, then he spotted what caused this. The opposite end of the handle had been sliced in half, empty as an old seashell. Having a rare dial made you feel lucky. Zoro spoke again while Ohm couldn't do more than shake in his stance. So, I guess that I am too. In his hand, the priest saw what could be the Aizen dial in Zoro's hand. So, thanks, idiot priest. With that said, Ohm had finally fallen, the last of the priests to lose to the intruders. Then a shadow emerged over Zoro and the swordsman realized that he nearly forgotten about the giant yellow dog. He braced for another battle when, holy, bang your head and pass out. And before Zoro knew it, the giant dog did just that. Holy was just too well trained. He followed orders from anyone that gave the command. And yet Zoro did not expect to see one of the goat soldiers run up beside his crewmates. He had nothing else to say about, "This place is fucking mad." All before a yet larger shadow was cast, this time covering everyone present. All of them had expressions of silent shock. XXXXX with Kuro and Robin. I seriously didn't make these to be used like this. Kuro grumbled as he watched Robin use his cat claws to cut out cubes of the clouds just for her sprouted arms to scoop out of the hole they were already deep in. Will you hurry it up? There is one more for you to pitch in instead of complaining. Robin retorted and just plain ignored her companion's moans. Kuro eventually took the other glove with claws and got to dig deeper. And it wasn't long until he felt the ground give away and felt like an opening. Robin spotted it and helped her companion expand the opening to fit them both while she commanded her sprouted arms to throw down her pack. Kuro just took back his cat claws and chanted to himself that they were not used as shovels. Robin just took in how they found what seems to be some room with clouds decorating the walls. Yet there was still one light at the end of the tunnel to check out. All thought was lost and all breath was taken away when the two went through the second opening, which was some kind of exit. And they left some kind of temple into a city. That's it. That is what I saw back up. Kuro felt genuinely excited. Could this be the city of gold? Indeed, mortals. A man's voice had cut through them worse than a spike to the chest. Turning back swiftly, both pirates saw God Eneru rest on top of the building while eating an apple rather bitterly. Kuro even noticed a faint outline of a fist on the check. I have already discovered it when I ascended to my throne, but alas, there was no gold to be found. Just stones with gibberish of maggots, no gold. Kuro said nothing. All he could do is sense that Eneru's power is not to be trifled with. He was more than a man without a shirt and the longest earlobes ever seen. Yet in this sense of caution was the feeling of surety that their captain, their strongest member, can still take one God Eneru. It is still a bit curious. I am still sensing signatures disappearing. God Eneru then spoke while still taking a bite out of his apple. And I don't sense any of the rebels who wish to steal my throne. I wonder why. There is this feeling at telling me that there is danger nearby. It is wise, when all else fails, to trust one's instincts, and if Eneru did, he would have lasted longer. Hello Eneru. Yet another voice had broke the ice and it was noted that God Eneru had shivered a little bit. All three of them turned to see a man in a pirate captain's cloak, his girl with her head behind his shoulder, both on top of the largest snake ever seen. Nola is home, so I must ask that you leave her house. XXXXX as pirate captain and tyrant god stare themselves down. The Going Merry finally arrived back at Angel Beach. Amazingly, the main ship of the Straw Hats, the King's Gourd, was untouched. It's gone fall. One of the inhabitants of the town, that which is named Angel Beach, shouted out while a crowd was rushing to the beach line. With the blue sea dwellers, and that little girl is dressed a lot like the rebels. I just saw a big fish hide behind the vessel to be sacrificed. The Straw Hats ignored the cries from the crowd and moved their scout ship next to their main ship. What a crowd. I am surprised that Isa is still asleep. Usopp committed on the circumstances while carrying the young girl that was brought to them by Gonfall. She was in bad shape and Kaya wasted no time treating her until she was at least stable and sleeping. Whether it was Usopp trying to be tough or was a sucker for his girlfriend, he still was the one to carry the girl. When they asked her for a name, the girl always chanted, Isa, before nodding off. Just make sure that she is comfy. Kaya responded. She is so small that a jolt will dislocate something like a bone or an organ. I suggest that you take good care of her. As a doctor, her patient always came first. Kaya felt proud to be taking control of a doctor's priorities while worried that it might prove to be rude to her boyfriend. Okay Kaya-chan. I will definitely treat her better than they would. To prove his point, Usopp managed to unconsciously catch a fresh tomato that was aimed at Isa. This got everyone else on guard. Gonfall was not happy about one bit. She is a little girl. Why are you treating her like a criminal? For an old man, he certainly has spunk and more endurance than most of his age. She is with the rebels. The one who threw the fruit aiming at Isa was a little boy who couldn't speak for himself. His father did. Just being here is enough for God Almighty to pass his judgment on us. So be it. Gonfall responded indifferently. Both he and Usopp exchanged a glance eye to eye before. We refused to bow down to a fraud of a god. The two screamed straight to the sky and the crowds panicked. They rushed and trampled over themselves for shelter and to hide from whatever is to come instantly. Yet, nothing happened. For one of those moments that feel like forever, not even crickets chirping was heard. Now that we have got your attention, Alvida had the duty of official first mate and took charge of the situation. We will like some confiscation for the trouble you gave us, and our sniper has just the thing to win you over. Thankfully that dirty, hidden meaning just flew everyone's head, or else Alvida just lost Usopp a month of cuddling. Back at the buried city, leave her house, Eneru spoke painfully slow. You mortal must be mentally retarded. The Lord of the Sky has no house and this is nobody's house. And I will not leave on the orders of a maggot. Eneru tried to act like his authority was offended, yet he still shivered the longer he stared at Luffy's emotionless expression. Luffy then shifted his eyes to Nola, spoke not a word, but Nami and the giant snake understood. The silence was broken by a loud and disturbing snap, followed by the sound of broken bones and a body hitting a stone floor. Sorry about Robin. I can't protect this city from what is to come. Just go north and give it a rain. Luffy spoke to his latest crewmate and jumped down to where God Eneru landed, twitching on the ground. It hurts a lot, looking and moving like a lot like a maggot, right? All this mockery made Eneru look like he was losing his sanity. And yet Luffy wasn't finished. There is one being that not even God can kill. If God can't kill, he fears. And I am the one you can't kill. I am the one you fear. As God Eneru struggled to get to his feet, Luffy walked over with steam emitted from his arms. If you are God, Luffy drew both blades to behold. Then I'm the devil, and for once, Eneru felt fear as he gazed upon his foe, who showed a terrifying aura. That of a featureless silhouette that had the evilest grin with the emptiest pair of eyes Eneru had ever gazed upon. Luffy then shifted his eyes to Nola, spoke not a word, but Nami and the giant snake understood. The silence was broken by a loud and disturbing snap, followed by the sound of broken bones and a body hitting a stone floor. Sorry about Robin. I can't protect this city from what is to come. Just go north and give it a rain. Luffy spoke to his latest crewmate and jumped down to where God Eneru landed, twitching on the ground. It hurts a lot, looking and moving like a lot like a maggot, right? All this mockery made Eneru look like he was losing his sanity. And yet Luffy wasn't finished. There is one being that not even God can kill. If God can't kill, he fears. And I am the one you can't kill. I am the one you fear. As God Eneru struggled to get to his feet, Luffy walked over with steam emitted from his arms. If you are God, Luffy drew both blades to behold. Then I'm the devil, and for once, Eneru felt fear as he gazed upon his foe, who showed a terrifying aura. That of a featureless silhouette that had the evilest grin with the emptiest pair of eyes Eneru had ever gazed upon. Speechless, I am flattered, Luffy stated and smirked when Eneru finally got back to his feet, with the bruise still visible, so much that looks like it hurts. It amused the pirate captain to see his foe try to avoid using a golden bow staff as a walking cane, to use it as a weapon instead. He chuckled as he took out his own weapons, the katana Reime Atami, Dawn Pain, and the rapier Uedoku Toge, Toxic Thorn. Well, I don't have all day. Silence. Eneru screamed until blood clotted in his throat, making him cough it all out. I have heard enough. For this insolence, I will give you a painful death that can only be done by God. Luffy wasn't too worried since the threat was lamed by another coughing fit. Puny God. Luffy felt like someone else said it to an actual god, only green-skinned and weighted several more tons in muscle. I am too obvious. We have wasted enough time. Kuro Barreto, Black Bullet, tossing his katana in the air for a bit. Luffy's arm stretched hundreds of meters and back almost instantly, landing a mean punch to Eneru's chest. And he hardened his fist for more damage. Once Eneru was lifted off the ground from the impact, Luffy caught Reime Atami like a pro. Tsupuritochin no Atami, split chin pain. Eneru felt a sword attack aimed with the intention of cutting him in half, and this time, he was able to block it with his staff. Okay. Now I am impressed, Eneru. Luffy didn't even look annoyed that his move was blocked. Not even when Eneru called upon his powers to turn into a thunderbolt to escape the block hold. Yes, I actually feel that, and it cleared my airways. Eneru was wondering why he was being so casual with a man from the sea below that has been making a mockery out of him. And I can tell that I need to fight blade with blade. Goromu Padoringu. Lumis Forge. After a light show of lightning sparks, Eneru's golden staff morphed into a fancy-looking trident. And I almost thought that you used that thing to show off. Luffy smirked. Let's see the distance between the two of us. Luffy vanished, and yet Eneru could still see him coming and blocked another katana slice. This time, when they broke off, both fighters started a simple clash off swords versus trident. It started light until Eneru found himself hard-pressed to keep up, while Luffy remained cool and hardly moved from his position as his arms moved his blades so fast that they were practically invisible. Then Eneru halted them both with his prongs before twirling his weapon, using the blunt end to put the swords out of the way for a swift stab to the chest. One that didn't even leave a bruise. Luffy's smirk only grew to see Eneru in shock once again, seeing the former skin turn black again that, somehow, blocked the trident prongs. To a normal man, you are invincible. To the monsters down below in the area that is called the New World, you are weakling with a god complex that only hit the jackpot. Luffy took this chance to talk down Eneru yet again, whom was still trying to comprehend this. I intend to one day rule over these monsters. They will respect your power and nothing more. Luffy used his katana for another simple swipe attack, and when Eneru's tried to block with just his reflexes, The latter's weapon failed this time. This was just adding fuel to the fire, which led to the god actually lowering his guard. A chance that Luffy took to run his rapier through the spleen. To top it off, Luffy painfully pulled out his weapon and even kicked Eneru away with his foot on the wound. "You can let him out now, girl." In a split second, someone else attacked Eneru. First a kick to the chest, and a second to the neck while Eneru was still airborne. A third one jabbed in the chest again, and Eneru skipped along the ground like the ragdoll he was feeling like. The attacker turned out to be Wiper, and he had both a smirk and a scowl on his face. "Don't get full of yourself, boy," Wiper said to Luffy, looking at the sight with enjoyment. "I still ought to burn your face off for what you did back there, and I don't care for your reasons." "Fair enough." Luffy uttered those two words right before the sky was filled with the most wonderful and mysterious sound any of them had ever heard. It was similar to an ancient bell. XXXXX earlier, Robin and Kuro went north of the city on the captain's orders. It was quite the trek until they saw something in the distance. Once they got there, it was truly a stunning sight. When Luffy said to give it a ring, the Straw Hats never understood it until now. What was up north was a giant golden bell, and it rested on a pedestal made of gold as well. "Well, I get it that Luffy told us to give it a ring, so I guess we better," Kuro remarked, and only took a step when he realized that Robin hadn't even taken a breath in since they came across this amazing sight. And he doubted it was just the bell that took her breath away. "Robin? Look." She spoke almost like a robot and pointed straight ahead, at the base of the bell. When Kuro followed her finger, he was surprised yet again. The base had Poneglyph writing on it. Those who made this bell were also part of the Forgotten Tribe, who lived during the Void Century and have died off when that century ended. They were the ones who created the written language. I guess that they had gold to spare to make something like this. Kuro had to make a comment on how an entire bell and pedestal was made purely with gold, which could say something about the ones who created. My best guess is that when the upper yard was sent up here, the bell was dislodged and landed separately from the rest of the continent. Kuro then turned back to Robin. "So, what do they say?" "That the rebels were entrusted with keeping a word to themselves, even to the end of time. Once that promise has been fulfilled, they were allowed to live their lives, without anything for them to hide anymore," Robin answered, talking like she was in a trance. Those words were almost the voice of a god speaking to his people of a task that he trusted them to perform, promising good fortune if completed. "Hey Robin, look over there," Kuro spoke up and actually got the tanned woman's attention. He was pointing at the base, around the left corner. "I know those words were not part of the original design." Robin narrowed her eyes and noticed that it was similar letters that were written similar to graffiti. A message made at a different time. When she read it, Robin felt like her heart trying to jump out of her chest. "This is impossible." Kuro was startled to see the stoic as a Lord Robin lose her cool from just reading a message. "Easy, easy Robin." Rather than hold her by the arms, Kuro stabilized Robin by the shoulders. "Please tell me what it says. You look like it is a threat from a demon." Robin took a deep breath and relaxed a bit. "Sorry Kuro, it was just a bit too much to wrap my head around." She relaxed a bit more with a few more deep breaths. It was a message, signed by Gold D like a pane of glass that cracked a bit. Our captain was right. The Pirate King made it to Sky Island. With this in mind, they almost forgot about ringing the giant bell. XXXXX back in the ruins. "So, the devil has sent one of his underlings to fight in his place?" Eneru didn't care for the wounds anymore, they were just distractions. Especially the sound of the bell, that meant nothing to this tyrant. "Don't try to act like you don't serve him, you are just an ant compared to him." Wiper tried not to let Eneru's taunt get under his skin, but Luffy's smirk was not helping. "I am flattered, but please don't pick on my friend. He is only doing what you will if the roles were reversed. His ancestors have been fighting for their land as soon as they were shot up here. They just want their land back, like Calgara died fighting for." Wiper lost his scowl and widened his eyes at Luffy. Calgara was the direct ancestor to the former, where most suspect to be a source to his natural strength. Wiper wanted to know how an idiot-looking blue sea dweller knew that. "Died fighting?" Eneru said in a delirious tone, like that of a madman. "Well, he can die all the same, right now." He turned his right arm into a thunderbolt, aiming at Wiper. Instantly, both of his enemies were alit with lightning. But the feeling of satisfaction only lasted 5 seconds when the dust cleared to show them both unscratched. Wiper looked as shocked and confused as Eneru while Luffy's smirk was still sticking, and the latter had his hand on Wiper's shoulder. "Cool isn't it?" Luffy said to Wiper. "What to see more?" Somehow, he was able to make it not sound seductive, more like general temptation. "Give him a good punch." While not taking a step. And while Wiper wanted to say that it was impossible, he still tried it and was shocked at the result. Like the Straw Hat Captain, Wiper's arm stretched by several meters and hit Eneru right on the face. "It's something not like anything other, EH. You are one fucking crazy blue sea dweller." Wiper could only respond, and Luffy took it as a compliment. "Erg, Eneru just won't stay down, even after going through the meat grinder. It may be his pride as a logia user, or his delusion of being an untouchable god, or both, that is doing this. You mortals will pay F for T this. Luffy and Wiper said nothing. They merely glared upon the downed form of their common enemy. Wiper will admit to have dreamed of seeing the tyrant of a god struggling to get to his feet, blood dripping from his busted lips and even a fist print or two showing on the flesh. Now, he feels both satisfied and cheated. First for seeing that dream come to life, and the second for how he only gave Eneru a slap on the cheek compared to how Luffy beat down on him. Luffy then left off his grip on Wiper's shoulder and walked in front of Eneru, still shaking and struggling until the former grinned while the latter on the ground looked like his soul was shattering. You can feel it, right, God? They found it. Eneru found it hard to growl, no matter how much he wanted to for Luffy's tuint. And guess what? It belongs to the people now. Not that they wanted such an ugly thing, so they are giving it to us. Eneru was left with nothing. No kingdom, no army, no subjects, and not even his masterpiece. He felt a lone tear drip down his cheek right before the strongest uppercut was heard, with his chin bones breaking. The disgraced tyrant could only stare into the eyes of his mortal enemy, truly as a dangerous and frightening like a devil. And time stopped when Eneru saw something that could only be the killing blow. This was the last of Eneru, and the tyrant knew it to the very end. Game over. Luffy's arm retraced and stretched at the speed of sound, which was followed by the sickening sound of a neck breaking. Those who had their eyes on Eneru had seen the god go limp when that punch hit straight on the neckline, shattering the point where the head is connected to the body. And it echoed through the land along with the ring of the bell that never stopped the whole time. Yet the limp body did not make a sound when it fell to the ground, similar to a sack of potatoes. Wiper couldn't believe it. The day was finally here. He and his kin had been one edge with the Skypans for 400 years, while they only lived under fear and tyranny for 6 years when Eneru took over. Still, it felt like that short era of terror had ended at last when the god was slain by the devil. Luffy, Wiper felt his heart jump a little to hear the voice of a concerned woman, turning to see the navigator look over the savior himself. Luffy had not moved when Eneru's body landed unceremoniously to the side. He only gazed to the other side of his body until he lifted his left arm to reveal something shocking. It was made almost entirely out of thunder. Game over. Luffy's arm retraced and stretched at the speed of sound, which was followed by the sickening sound of a neck breaking. Those who had their eyes on Eneru had seen the god go limp when that punch hit straight on the neckline, shattering the point where the head is connected to the body. And it echoed through the land along with the ring of the bell that never stopped the whole time. Yet the limp body did not make a sound when it fell to the ground, similar to a sack of potatoes. Wiper couldn't believe it. The day was finally here. He and his kin had been one edge with the Skypans for 400 years, while they only lived under fear and tyranny for 6 years when Eneru took over. Still, it felt like that short era of terror had ended at last when the god was slain by the devil. Luffy, Wiper felt his heart jump a little to hear the voice of a concerned woman, turning to see the navigator look over the savior himself. Luffy had not moved when Eneru's body landed unceremoniously to the side. He only gazed to the other side of his body until he lifted his left arm to reveal something shocking. It was made almost entirely out of thunder. It was late evening when everyone in the heavens had gathered to celebrate their freedom from Eneru's tyranny and hearing the Song of the Island for the first time in 400 years. The rebels were glad to have their ancestral homeland back, but while the thought had come to mind to keep it all to themselves, they were too tired of fighting to consider. The residents from Angel Beach were grateful to party on the Holy Vareth. I still can't believe it. A rebel by the name of Lackey spoke what was on her mind. How was that boy with the hat able to toy with Eneru and even kill him with his bare hands, after how we have tried and failed to even touch him? Wiper, the rebel leader, just relaxed and nibbled on a meat stick that was made by the boy's cook. Even he had to admit that it was tasty. He called it a power that is found in all living beings. Wiper finally responded after taking a good swallow. One that mantra is part of, and there is a power that allows one to hit even a logia user. Lackey widened her eyes. Can we learn it? Wiper felt a smirk reach his lips when she almost shook him by the shoulders to get an answer. The boy with the hat and his gang don't plan to stay for long. They can only teach us so much, but you will have to wait a bit. Wiper responded, and to show what he meant in that last part, he pointed off in the distance. Lackey followed his finger to see the man in question, in good company to say the least. Luffy was dining with Nami, getting comfy on his chest while them both were resting on Nola. For an honorable mention, that giant bird from the altar was also resting nearby after being treated by Chopper. I still say the Blue Sea Dweller is the craziest I ever meet. Who else could find out that the Lord of the Sky is actually female and just wanted her old home back? I am almost surprised to see that you are being so calm about it. Usually you have something to be mad about. Lackey said honestly, and Wiper wanted to scowl at least, but just released a breath. Even I get tired of being angry, and I still feel a bit tired from seeing one craziness after another. Wiper responded and reached for another meat stick. They were too good and the wildcard wishes to admit it. XXXXX. The next morning after the party, what do you know? Luffy asked while the rest of his crew were speechless. They were gazing upon the repaired King's Gourd. Only it was much, much bigger. It was easily twice as big, much twice. The overall design was barely any different, the measurements and positions were adjusted to the new size. The body of the ship seemed to be double-decked and there was a third mast complete with a functioning sail that bore their Jolly Roger. You people sure work fast. Luffy turned to the crowd on Angel Beach. I don't know Luffy-kun. Nami mused. She would rather just nod off on her boyfriend's shoulder. Sure, there is a lot of space to spare, but a bigger ship is an easier target. Just how will all of us even protect something that is so much bigger than all of us? We will just have to adjust the best way we can, Nami-chan. Luffy responded and pointed out the crew doing their little self-tours at their own pace. It is still generous of the locals to not only fix and upgrade our ship but also give up most of their dials. I guess that even rubber bands can make miracles. Nami started to giggle and smile, which made her shine much more than her uneasy frown. It was so amusing to see the locals who live in the sky and use seashells for everyday life get on rubber bands like the rarest thing in the world. Nami added her own 2 cents and Luffy just chuckled along. Come on. We need to get ready to leave for the ocean or else we will lose where the log post points. Nami would care about such details if she wasn't snuggling in her boyfriend's warmth. And Luffy felt a pleasant tingle while he rubbed her head as if an actual house cat. Fine. Lead the way, my king, XXXXX. A couple of days later. Do you really have to leave? Konus was along the edge of the Sky Island along with her father and her Skyfox pet. Gonfall was also there with his faithful companion, the pink bird that can transform into a lackluster Pegasus. We were just getting to know each other, especially after how you freed us from tyranny. Thanks, Konus, we really appreciate that. Luffy said while leaning over the railing. But we are still sailors, free sailors that are more often than not called pirates. And our compass will not wait for us when it points to the next island. We need to be on the blue sea before we lose our place. It was a real petty and even more since they had to lose the other Skypans and the rebels to avoid any crowd seeing them off. Besides, the new and improved King's Gourd is a big bonus to seeing Sky Island and we have that big bad boy to take with us. Luffy used his thumb to point to the rather large column that is truly made of pure gold. It was so massive that the Skypans had to make another vessel to carry with a chain keeping it attached to the King's Gourd. If you will gaze at the bottom of the vessel whenever a wave comes to shift it up a bit, there are dozens of shells littering on the bottom. But will your girl be okay? Konus asked with actually concern while Luffy wasn't too worried about Nami. To an innocent young woman, the navigator looked brain dead as Nami hadn't even twitched to the side breeze while napping on Luffy's shoulder. But Konus's father and Gonfall had a good idea on what happened. They praised the wonders of youth and to Luffy for his skills with his woman. Luffy just gave a grin that confirmed what the adults thought. I am sure Konus, Nami still feels like queen of the world to witness more gold than several kings put together. Since I got it for her, she thanked me last night. Luffy responded and Nami got a smile as big as a Cheshire cat's while her cheeks were almost neon red. The adult males also felt their faces get red when their imaginations ran wild to picture the pleasurable night between the pirate captain and his girl. Too bad that the stinking bird had to wake us up late last night. Luffy scowled and bluntly pointed to the south bird chained up again but also with its beak sealed. The little avian creature's certainty got on everyone's bad side when scowls also appeared on their faces. Okay, you are almost at the exit. Konus saw something worth cheering up and pointed out that the cloud stream was leading the vessels. Everyone saw it and hurried over to the side where they can see their friends on the shoreline and said their farewells. Up until Konus shouted, and beware of the drop. The what? XXXXX while everyone was screaming so loud that it will be like trying to hear a dog whistle and staying on the deck was just as easy. But Luffy was able to get himself together to hold on to Nami and make his way to where the helm is. Okay everyone, attention, if this is done right, we can save ourselves, our ships and our loot. Try to hold on to the ship where you won't land hard and wish us luck. They only had a second until the larger than before King's Gourd slowed down suddenly and almost to a stop. Most were able to grasp the mast so that they won't hit the flooring, yet the others could only hang on to the former. After getting over what must be a killer landing, the crew wondered what happened. Hey, look at that. A voice from the railing shouted, and when eyes looked at the belly of the ship, they saw it littered with dials just like the vessel carrying their gold. And half of these dials were going off like rocket jets, must be what is slowing the vessels to a slow descent. Thank God. I am glad that I checked them out before we left Sky Island. Luffy said while wiping off some sweat from his forehead. Had them fail, we were goners. The crew didn't care if that was a joke or not, they were glad to not crash into the ocean. Then again. Just how did you get so many dials? Did those people from up there really gave up so many just for our ship? Kuro asked to be sure and Luffy just smirked. It was a cinch, I just borrowed Usopp's old collection of rubber bands. Nothing much more needed to be said. There were just a lot of bouncing eyebrows sent the sniper's way. Usopp chuckled nervously and shrugged his shoulders. I was wondering what to do with those old things until Luffy asked if he could have them. Usopp could have rambled on until Kaya gave him a good kiss on the cheek, That got his brain to shut down for only a bit. Then a thought got it to work. So what happened to Umi? Before anyone could respond, a large door at the base opened. Out came a certain large sea snake, panting like he was having a heart attack. Luffy walked over with a concerned yet amused expression. "Hey there, boy, I promise you. That is the last time we are going above sea level," the captain said to the Sea King, who only rolled around in the seawater and gave an expression that said, you better, he says. Chopper translated. He is grateful that this new ship has a compartment room just for him. The crew nodded along. A happy Sea King is a friend while an angry one is a predator. "Now then everyone," Luffy announced, "one more reminder before you go to bed and expect clouds again. We are back in the Grand Line. Hope you enjoyed our little vacation, because it is time to get back to work." As much as they wanted to grumble, the captain was only breaking this to get the gears turning again. "Next, a bit of big news and a present I got for my girl Nami." Turning to the woman in question, "Care to show off a bit?" Nami's Cheshire smile grew back and, much to shock of everyone present, she turned into a thunderbolt that bounced on and off the deck. It even jumped to hop skip on the ocean surface. In case you blinked, Nami reappeared on the railing, in the stance of feral cat enjoying the looks on the crew. "My man has gotten his hands on the Guro Guro no mi. Rumble rumble fruit. And, after a little persuasion, and a bit of arguing, he gave the fruit for me to devour." No one wanted to hear more, so they asked for no more. "If there are any more questions, it is time to set sail." Luffy spoke up. "You probably already guessed that the next place of interest will be the Carpenter Haven, Water 7. The best part is that even pirates are allowed to enter as customers as long as they behave. We need to find someone there that can fully upgrade our ship to make it more suitable for the new world. After all, bigger is not always better." The crew agreed, and even Usopp did, with the promise that the Going Merry stays as she is. "But before we do, there is a little something that had to wait until the excitement was over." "Just a moment," Luffy said, and went through one of the doors, leaving his crew wondering what he was talking about. But they didn't have to wait long until Luffy came with what seems to be an ordinarily standard barrel. "Now," Luffy spoke up suddenly, "unless you show yourself or I will have to get rough and pull you out myself. And trust me, biting back is a bad idea." Luffy then put the barrel on its side until it started to tumble a bit. The lid then fell off, and when the crew tried to look inside, they flinched. It was the little girl from the rebels, Isa. "Hi everyone, if there are any more questions, it is time to set sail." Luffy spoke up. "You probably already guessed that the next place of interest will be the Carpenter Haven, Water 7. The best part is that even pirates are allowed to enter as customers as long as they behave. We need to find someone there that can fully upgrade our ship to make it more suitable for the new world. After all, bigger is not always better." The crew agreed, and even Usopp did, with the promise that the Going Merry stays as she is. "But before we do, there is a little something that had to wait until the excitement was over." "Just a moment," Luffy said, and went through one of the doors, leaving his crew wondering what he was talking about. But they didn't have to wait long until Luffy came with what seems to be an ordinarily standard barrel. "Now," Luffy spoke up suddenly, "unless you show yourself or I will have to get rough and pull you out myself. And trust me, biting back is a bad idea." Luffy then put the barrel on its side until it started to tumble a bit. The lid then fell off, and when the crew tried to look inside, they flinched. It was the little girl from the rebels, Isa. "Hi everyone." Isa. The whole sea shook worse than a seaquake, and the native sea life thought so, and didn't give it much thought before getting back to their business. "What the hell?" Sorry, Isa shamefully said from her spot behind Luffy's legs, scared by the looks of the crew when she revealed herself. I just," then someone kneeled down to eye level with the little girl. "Did you at least let your big sister Lackey know that you were boarding our ship?" Nijiko didn't have much on the action when Luffy told her to steer the old King's Gourd back to Angel Beach. And her big sister instincts told her to try and set the record straight before comforting the little lass. "Because we can't just go back and return you. Lackey is more of an auntie." Isa responded to the first part about the question, but Nijiko won't have that just yet. "But yeah, I did tell her and Isa was a loss for words soon and gave out an eep when Luffy lifts her up onto his shoulders. "I am afraid that returning to Angel Beach is out of the question, so we better do good on little Isa," Luffy said, with a smile. Even though the lass in question pouted about being called little, as of now, she will be a cabin girl and an apprentice of ours. "You all better treat her good, will you?" The crew knew what their captain had in mind, and there were no objections like the previous member to sail with them. XXXXX the next day, land ho, Usopp shouted, comfy in the new crow's nest on the King's Gourd. It actually had a twin, and both of them were covered with double wooden ceilings for the rain. This was something that the Skypines did not understand. There was no rain at Angel Beach, but Alvida suggested it with the redesign of the ship. And it looks like it doesn't have any marines. After shouting that off, Usopp took a better look because, never mind that. I can't see any form of settlement. It is almost as bad as that stripped ship back there. No kidding. Luffy responded as he walked out to get a good look. The crew were either checking the ship for any damage, for the 100th time, or taking it easy to be back on the blue seawater. Seriously, that ship was the most pitiful I even seen, and that is not mentioning the pirates trapped on that rat trap. Everyone in hearing range could only nod to agree and shake their heads in pity. It was a bit after Isa was found as a stowaway and then made as a cabin girl. They were greeted by a strange sight that confirmed that they were back in the Grand Line. Sea monkeys. They were not a threat, especially since the captain's girl is a living thunderbolt. However, the same cannot be said about that drifting ship with near-dead sailors stuck on it. The school of sea monkeys saw it and thought to make that ship their prey. And sea monkeys love to cause tsunamis. A few of the Straw Hats tried to call out that ship about the incoming wave. However, that band of pirates couldn't even agree on who will use the bathroom next. Luffy did pick up that apparently their navigator and their captain is not on the ship. And they just argued and fought until their ship was sunk by the sea monkeys. Having their fun, the school of giant fish with monkey faces had left. They didn't even bother to try the king's gourd. Can we go and explore, big captain? Little Isa had already learned a lot about sailing on the blue sea from pretty much everyone, especially Luffy. She was stuck between calling him big brother and captain until Isa decided to use both. Oh no you don't, the little girl froze to the sound of a distressful mother. You are staying where we can see you, young lady, make that too. Isa groaned like any other little kid denied candy to face both Nami and Nezuko, each with worried, stricken and steaming mad expressions on their faces. While Luffy was strict but fair, he was also quite free-spirited. He preferred to let the little girl run around until she will trip badly. His girlfriend and her sister, on the other hand, wanted Isa to grow up right. Both of them wanted to be sure that any bad behavior doesn't spread to the little girl as long as she is in the stage of seeking suitable role models. As captain, Isa is going to learn how different our islands are from her village. Luffy spoke up, still the man with the guts and balls to talk to a scorned woman or two. And, also as captain, I order you two to make sure that Isa doesn't get lost or worse. He even left a threat hanging off which got the two sisters to nod. Their little girl of course had no idea why that happened or that everyone else felt disturbed for it just a bit. Once they let loose the anchors, Luffy took Usopp and Chopper to check the place out. Isa went along too, with the captain's girlfriend and her sister to follow like helicopter parents. Kaya was also coming. Something about the ordeal in the sky had left her a bit too attached for her own good. Shouldn't last long, hopefully. The little girl was willing to look past all the embarrassment to hang out the captain that she somehow bonded overnight. The island looked like a simple plate covered in grass and trees that seemed to be rather thin and skinny. Luffy noticed that there was fruit on one of the trees that looked like apples but were also skinny, almost like test tubes. Thankfully they did taste any apples. Isa loved the taste when Luffy gave her one too. But then came something that really made their day. It was a creature that stood on two legs with two arms lagging on their sides. However, this was no human. It had thick fur and sharp claws. When it turned to face the Straw Hats, it was officially a bear. The bear-like creature's certainty wasn't hostile and just got back on its way, but immediately afterwards, more and more animals appeared. And they all looked like someone had stretched them long and thin like a lump of clay. Isa, with a cute tone, pointed out to a stretched-out moose to be Chopper's relative. The doctor's reaction made the present company chuckle a bit. Luffy actually walked up to one of them, a canine that had several miles between its front legs and the rear legs. For being a wild dog, it was friendly enough and even shook hands when the pirate captain said so. Usopp thought that the dog could be a good limbo line and wanted to impress his audience with his skills at the game. Too bad that Luffy had his own kind of fun when he asked the dog to sit while Usopp was only halfway under. After having enough fun at the sight, Luffy said, "Okay, reach for the sky." The dog heard that and with a mischievous glint in its eye, it rose up to heights that made it hard to see the top. Still, Luffy caught the dog when it dropped to the ground. "Thanks for the fun, and be careful of those long turns." Usopp was the only one not laughing as the stretched-out dog waved and ran off. The sniper grumbled and got up to his feet after that Nanto him. Usopp didn't mind, only a bit, that Kaya quickly checked for any broken bones or bruises. But his trained eye caught something that he couldn't see from the ship. "Look, there is a hut over there." It took a while to get to the hut since it was far from where they played with the local dog. "It is a hut all right," Luffy mused while the girls still attached themselves to Isa. "But unless this is a farm without fields, there is hardly any reason to have one in the middle of nowhere. Do you see any others?" Luffy turned to Usopp who was already searching and turning up dry. The captain tried to scout out the island with his haki but there weren't any people other than his crew that had picked up. Especially not in the hut, so Luffy didn't bother even checking it out. That was until Chopper called out, "Big brother, someone does live here and she is on the other side of the hut." When the Straw Hats moved around the hut, a beautiful creature was to behold. Unlike the other animals that were stretched out, this was a purebred horse that had the legs and neck like a giraffe, yet she looked lovely all the same. And she was certainly friendly enough to nuzzle with Chopper the whole time. Then Luffy decided to play a bit. He picked Chopper up and gave a killer hug as bad as an excited mother to her little boy. "You make me proud, little brother. You found yourself a beautiful girlfriend." Chopper burned up a killer blush and the other Straw Hats found it both cute and amusing, especially when Chopper stuttered out in denial. "Just kidding, Chopper." "Not funny," Chopper muttered, but that was all he could say before Luffy rubbed where he loves it to most. This only made him look cuter. Chopper even purred somehow. Never mind. Luffy was proud of himself and even switched his hand to rub his little brother on the head. "So Chopper, what's her name?" the native horse chirped in an excited tone, like she is happy to introduce herself to good company. "Shelly, and she has been waiting for her owner to come back, for 10 years. Chopper shouted and the Straw Hats had mixed reactions. It was almost like with Laboon the island whale in the Twin Capes. "You truly are one of a kind, girl," Luffy said with affection and respect while he tenderly rubbed the bottom of Shelly's chin. "Whoever your owner is, they better see how a good girl you are." The girls, watching their captain tending to the native horse, almost wanted to blush with jealousy. They wanted to wish that it was them in the horse's place. However, they couldn't stop imaging how Luffy will be with kids if he is that tender with an animal. "Hey Luffy, look at this!" Usopp suddenly shouted out from some spot close to the house. The young captain ceased his tender petting, much to Shelly's pout, and walked over to where the sniper is. "Take a good look at these two." Luffy followed Usopp's hands to what looks like a pair of bamboo stalks that definitely stick out from the various tall, thin trees. When Luffy looked up to see the top, he found that to be quite difficult. They both looked like they reached the clouds. Then suddenly, one of them began to move with the other following closely behind. "Those are—" Usopp wanted to speak until one of the stalks waked him in the stomach, while not leaving a bruise but stopped his train of thought. "Yes, they are," Luffy shouted off, followed by his fist and the snipers cracking the stalks apart. Only a few seconds later, Luffy caught a small figure that fell directly above. "Hello. Hello, I am Tonjeet." Tonjeet is an elderly man, with wrinkles and a round white beard. He has small round eyes, a round nose, and is missing one tooth. He has a purple-brown hat, with brown fur lining, and brown cloth on the sides. He wears a yellow tunic, with green lining with a circle design on the end of the sleeves, inside of the chest. He has a purple sash, with a red string hanging down. He wears purple shoes, held on by white strings, and gray on the toe area. He also wears vertical zigzag striped purple and tan pants. "Thank you, gents, for helping me down." "Don't get up now, you have a bloody nose." Chopper heard the ruckus and was tending to the old man while the girls watched. "But how can you have one when you didn't even hit the ground?" "Must be the sudden increase in air pressure," Luffy answered instead of the old man. "From what I can tell, those were silts he made and somehow, they never stopped growing and he was stuck at the top. Must have been so high that the sudden change in atmospheric pressure will give him a nosebleed." Seeing the looks everyone was giving him, Luffy chuckled bashfully. "When you hang out with Nami-chan, you can learn a lot." That got him an affectionate hug from you-know-who around the neck. "Ah, thank you, my wonderful and considerate captain." Tonjeet almost cracked a smile, something about when he was that young and in love. He finally shared that his dream was to make the world's tallest stilts, but when he did make them, he couldn't get down. And as time had gone on, the silts still grew to even taller heights. Luckily for the old man, there were trees just as tall and with apples that he ate to survive. How did he do everything was best not shared. All they need to know was that he got stuck on his own stilts, 10 years ago. To make things worse, he was part of a nomadic tribe that has settled on not only the island but the entire chain. Normally, it was impossible to get between islands on foot or horse with the sea separating each island. But there is this special time that comes every few years when the water level drops to the point that dry land is available for the tribe to move along. And Tonjeet missed it when he couldn't get down from his stilts for 10 years. Anyhow, there is someone that has been waiting all this time for you, had to miss out on the move and has been alone the whole time. Luffy spoke seriously and Tonjeet didn't want to argue with that, however. Shelly. The sight of his faithful steed rose his spirits and the good girl couldn't hold a grudge against the man that has made her lonely for a whole decade. XXXXX later. You are even faster than before, girl," Tonjeet yelled like a little boy on a roller coaster, which was appropriate to say because he was riding Shelly for the first time in 10 years. The Straw Hats sat on a hill to watch the sight. Luffy suddenly stiffed before taking out a double-mouthed pistol ready to fire. Brace! From the gun was not just the sound of bullet shot but the sight of a blinding glare that swiftly covered the spot. Everyone nearby had to block their eyes to avoid getting blind, but that was when they heard something else. The sound of something moving fast, hitting another one. "Alright, come on out," Luffy shouted out to a nearby bush. "You dare shoot at a horse who was just riding with her master for the first time in a decade? Show yourselves before I shot your heads off." Then it started to shake before a trio emerged out. Chopper and Kaya, along with Usopp, were too busy checking on their new friends while the sisters kept their hands on Isa. "How rude to talk to me like that and to steal my catch. That horse was mine." Luffy was not amused and it showed in his face. "You don't even know who you are dealing with. The young captain knew perfectly well and can sense that this was a weakling, plain and simple, with nothing to hide. "You are Foxy, the silver fox." Luffy interrupted with a neutral voice that had a hidden annoyed tone. Foxy was a short man with a real flashy attire and a nose that was worse than Usopp's, and it was red like a patient with the cold. Not to mention that his head had a pointy hairdo and a chin like a bowling pin. Oh, I take that back, you do know that you are outmatched." Foxy laughed, and so did his two little minions. One of them was a woman who wore a ridiculous black mask that had fox ears, and the other was a gorilla that also wore a mask too. However, who has a mere 24 million berry bounty and cheated for every 920 Ds ever challenged other pirate crews to? Luffy spoke next, and that got the trio to be shocked. "So, you are hardly a threat. Just a bunch of no-good liars and cheaters that break their own rules." This got those three to fall to the ground with their foreheads on the grass with a dark rain cloud over their heads. All they could do was mumble about being called cheaters that they are. Yet the trio found themselves looking at Angry Devil when Luffy grabbed them by the collars. "And if your ragtag crew had made a scratch on my ship, you will die on that rat trap like the filth you are." XXXXX. Thankfully, for the cheater trio, there wasn't one dent on the King's Gourd. Foxy's ship was simply shoving its weight around with its cat paw anchors blocking off Luffy's pirate ship. And the crew on board were talking them down about how they were undefeatable in Davy back fights. Apparently, those were events in competition between two pirate crews to see who will be traded off to the winner. That is, if both captains agreed. And Luffy has made his decision clear. He doesn't play games with cheaters. Just who do you think are? Foxy apparently had a bad memory, an over-bloated ego, or both to forget that Luffy threaded the former and his minions expertly. But the young captain was beaten to the punch. "Boss." One of the Foxy pirates, evidenced by the same ridiculous black fox mask he was wearing, shouted off with the face of a man watching a predator staring at him. "That's Monkey D. Luffy. He replaced Crocodile of the Shichibuki, 7 warlords of the sea, and he defeated him without getting a single scratch." Foxy started to see the picture, and when he turned to face the black-haired pirate, Luffy was just playing with one of his hair stands under his signature hat. "He did get some sand in my sandals, they itch like hell." Then Luffy turned to face Foxy again, and that same murderous look somehow got even scarier. "And don't think that I haven't noticed the looks you made on the girls while you were basking in your self-glory. That was my girlfriend and her sister, that you were planning to steal from us." For once, that trio of cheaters looked really pitiful as more and more of the Straw Hats gathered around them with demonized looks of anger and disgust. The very next second, they felt like they were squeezed through a straw, and their bigger-than-life rat trap had a massive hole which leaked in ocean water. All it took was one large wave to sink that eyesore. But just as Tonjit was thanking the Straw Hats for dealing with those scumbags that tried to capture his steed, the doctor pointed out what he thought to be another strange, stretched-out animal native to the island. Yet, "Chopper, get the hell away from him." Luffy shot off and scared everyone a bit. Their captain actually looked worried about this strange figure. This was the first time they saw it happen, especially since Luffy stared an actual god in the face with no worries. Chopper didn't want to argue and ran to hide behind his big brother's legs, in his cute way of reversed hiding. Ma, keep it down. I am trying to nap here." The figure spoke in a real lazy tone. And with a long yawn, he removed his sleep mask for one of his eyes. "Ooh, if it's the little boy with Akagami, you have grown quite a bit since then. Just like you, Robin." Luffy scowled, and when he felt the archaeologist herself move behind him to hide, the pirate captain grasped one of her hands and the other did the same to Nami's hand. The latter girl was too concerned and curious to worry about another woman cozying up to her boyfriend. Luffy-kun. Nami was also scared of Luffy's expression and feeling the pain of his grasp. "Who is that?" "He is one of the 3 monsters among the Marines, one of its greatest powers. He is Kuzan, aka Aokiji, an admiral." Luffy answered, and the rest of the Straw Hats were on guard. Even Chopper had heard about the Marine admirals, who can strike fear in most pirates and criminals because of their unstoppable power. The only one that didn't respond to the name Admiral was Isa for obvious reasons, but her natural talent for sensing others had alerted her. This man's power overshadowed Eneru back in the upper yard. Kuzan is an incredibly tall, slim and muscular man. He has black curly hair cut to chin length that fans out at the tips, tanned skin, and an altogether lean, long build. His outfit consisted of a white buttoned-up vest with standing collar over a long-sleeved navy blue shirt, with matching white trousers and black dress shoes. This is all rarely accompanied by a matching white suit jacket. He also wears a yellow tie divided geometrically by black lines and again, a sleep mask on his forehead. Now I am not here on boss's orders. I like this place and felt like relaxing on my usual spot." Kuzan spoke, but the Straw Hats were still tense, marveling at how such a lazy man could have a power level that rivals their captain. Then he turned to Tonjit and Shelly. "I heard that you, my man, had missed your ride a decade ago because of a silly mistake on your part. I can offer a solution if you wish to get back with your tribe." Tonjit wished he knew if he could trust this tall lanky man whom his friends were wary of him. After a bit he accepted. Yet, if this is a trick, then you will have to answer to them. Kuzan was lazy but no fool. He agreed with the suspicion about his motives. Soon enough, Tonjit had packed up everything including his house and followed Kuzan along with everyone else to the west shore of the island. You might want some distance so you don't get caught in its tracks. That was already done, and then Kuzan dipped his hand in the ocean. Just then, a sea king many times larger than Umi appeared with the intent to devour Kuzan. And yet, the one in danger was the beast when Kuzan spoke again. Isu Agi, Ice Age. The present company were shocked again when the ocean in front of them along with the sea king were frozen solid. Instantly, after a painfully long moment, Luffy spoke again with Robin still hanging onto him. This is the power of an admiral, with his devil fruit. The Hiei no Mi, ice fruit. He can freeze nearly anything and everything with ice as well as turn into ice. If they weren't scared before, the Straw Hats were definitely frightened of this man. Kuzan then stood up and released his hand from the ocean. This ice will hold for a week. That should give you enough time to find your tribe, old man. I wish you luck. Tonjit hesitated to leave his new friends with such a monster, but Luffy nodded. The old man attached his belongings to Shelly and both of them hurried down the ice path towards to the next island in the chain. Now then, Shichibuki Monkey D. Luffy. Kuzan waited in pure silence until the local and his steed were out of eyesight and hearing range to get serious. I must say that I never pegged you to be so stupid. Yeah? Luffy played it cool and ignored that Robin was binging to shake, and not from the icy path. Stop trying to be cool, that's my drift. Kuzan responded, and when no one else did, he let out a real long sigh. I mean that you let a she-devil on your ship, like many others did before the world had beaten to the ground. And what's your point? Luffy continued to stare down Kuzan, despite that the admiral easily towered over him. I am serious, and I don't regret having Robin sail with us. Kuzan scowled, as if to say, I have heard that before. When word got out that the she-devil has left the protection under one Shichibuki, only to land in the lap of another, the bosses decided to finally turn her in. Kuzan spoke up. And with the other boys too busy with their fun, they thought they need to send me in. Luffy made his own scowl, not buying this story. You are also here to bring up how I still did you a favor when I broke up that civil war on the world government's lawn, done by the abuse of power from my predecessor. In other words, you want to thank me for getting rid of Crocodile. Luffy finally responded, and Kuzan didn't lose his scowl. Reading other people's minds is already starting to get old. Whatever, I am getting the she-devil, end of story. Kuzan was no longer the lazy man from before, he really looked like a man with obstacles between him and his target. Zoro, Sanji and Alvida moved in between the admiral and Luffy. Everyone else moved back for some distance. Not that this meant any to Kuzan, with ice forming around his hands and spreading to the grass from his feet. Why must you kids not listen to your superiors? Kuzan got his answer when Sanji moved in for a kick to the face, that which the former easily raised his left arm to catch it. Avant bras, forearm, Sanji shouted, and Kuzan actually felt the blow which shattered the ice on his arm. Too bad that the admiral was faster on the recovery and reformed his left hand to grasp Sanji's foot, spreading the ice from the former's hand. That was when Zoro moved in and Kuzan saw a simple, single downward slash. Some of the grass stalks that were frozen had floated up to Kuzan's free palm. Isu Saberu, Ice Saber, instantly, a blade of ice without a visible handle was created and easily blocked the slash. Just as swift, Kuzan used the cook to slug Zoro across with enough strength to send them flying across the field for several feet. However, Kuzan felt something hit his body multiple times in a split second. Supina Supaiku Sutoraiku, Spinner Spike Strike, Alvida had taken the chance while the admiral was focused on the boy to gain momentum with the help of her frictionless bare feet, and move in on her target like an actual spinner but armed with an iron spiked mace. My captain has helped me come a long way, so you better keep your eyes peeled. Alvida soaked in the moment until the lump of ice that as Kuzan reached out and grasped her free arm with the intent to freeze it. Yet the first mate easily freed herself thanks to her devil fruit. Kuzan was genuinely surprised when his eyes failed to capture Alvida. So much that he had to switch to defense when he was suddenly bombarded by the two marksmen on the crew. Usopp and Frank. The sniper did feel out of his element when he was not concealed, but he sucked it in while his comrade kept up the heat with his twin revolvers, loading each round with his breath modified to explosive by his devil fruit power. Kuzan must have gotten annoyed when he forced the Straw Hats to scatter with large ice spikes surging across the grass field. Nami, Najiko, get Isa back on the King's Gourd. Fighters, stay on your guard. Everyone else moved the ship to a faraway side of the island. Luffy gave out orders and he got a quick kiss on the cheek from Nami before she disappeared in a spark of thunder. Soon enough, the ice spikes halted and Kuzan finally got to pull himself together. He didn't even have a bruise on himself. Okay, you kids are making my ears ring and that ruins my naps. Then a large shadow formed over Kuzan, almost blocking out the sun. Now what? Looking up, He could only twitch his eyebrow and feel a sweat drop fall down the back of his head. "Sorry to keep you guys waiting. This place needs more of these," Carol chirped out while carrying a boulder twice as large as the king's gourd, as if it weighted the same as a feather. "Look out below, 10-ton dorapu, 10-ton drop." At the speed of a falling meteor, the boulder landed right on Kuzan. It was almost like when it happens on kids' cartoons. "I do good, right, Captain?" Luffy was not going to dignify that with a response. He knows this man better than his crew, even after everything so far. Especially when the ground suddenly froze solid and yet feels like the surface of a boiling pot of water. Isu Grounda Basuto, ice ground burst. Instantly, the grass field exploded in a mass of ice spikes and shards that scattered the straw hats. Not to mention the oversized boulder froze over and shattered to reveal Kuzan, once again not damaged, just more annoyed. "No more games. I am going to bring the she-devil, dead or alive." Kuzan spoke, with the intent of taking the kid gloves off. Searching for Robin wasn't necessary for an admiral like him, and Kuzan shot off in a torrent of ice towards her. "Isu Taimu, ice time." Robin let out a silent scream, eyes filled with trauma reignited. But, as Kuzan was inches from embracing her with his ice, "Hello, ice brain." Kuzan stared at the figure without only a pair of soulless eyes and an evil grin as the only features. He suddenly was as small as an insect with a demon staring down on it. Before he could utter a word, his view got split in half. Shogo Supatoro, noon spitroast. Once the ice pieces and the mist had settled, the Straw Hats saw that their captain had moved just as fast as their foe. And once he landed in between Kuzan and Robin, Luffy sliced the former in half. "You may be an admiral, but no logia is strong enough against their second curse." Luffy spoke calmly down to the two pieces of Kuzan that tried to pull themselves together but were instead withering on the ground as if a worm had been bisected. "One." Robin couldn't believe what just happened. Nobody has ever taken an admiral by surprise or at least matched them in speed. The admirals were the unstoppable powers of the Navy, that only the strongest pirates can ever hope to match. Where are the odds that she will find one? Especially one willing to stare down a certain admiral just to protect her? And somehow, the sight of Kuzan helpless to get himself up felt reliving. Was it her sadistic streak or something else? "Everyone, this battle cannot be contained anymore. Kuzan will be willing to kill all of us to get to Robin. Bring her to the ship and keep an eye out for the ice. Do not let it reach the king's gourd," Luffy ordered in a single breath. Necessary for the circumstances. And for once, Sanji did not try to shove his weight around to handle Robin. Alvida was the one to get Robin off the ground while the boys occupied the girls as they fled to their ship. And when they were out of eyesight, Luffy turned to see Kuzan finally and literally putting himself back together. And for a lazy man, he had quite the ugly scowl. "Even the Buddha's patience has limits and I just ran out. Brace yourself, brat." But there is only a few that Luffy is truly scared off, and that doesn't include this. Last time it was Shanks, and now, Luffy simple turned with his blades out with his skin letting off steam yet again. "It is my turn. No more games. I am going to bring the she-devil, dead or alive." Kuzan spoke, with the intent of taking the kid gloves off. Searching for Robin wasn't necessary for an admiral like him, and Kuzan shot off in a torrent of ice towards her. "Isu Taimu, ice time." Robin let out a silent scream, eyes filled with trauma reignited. But, as Kuzan was inches from embracing her with his ice, "Hello, ice brain." Kuzan stared at the figure without only a pair of soulless eyes and an evil grin as the only features. He suddenly was as small as an insect with a demon staring down on it. Before he could utter a word, his view got split in half. Shogo Supatoro, noon spitroast. Once the ice pieces and the mist had settled, the Straw Hats saw that their captain had moved just as fast as their foe. And once he landed in between Kuzan and Robin, Luffy sliced the former in half. "You may be an admiral, but no logia is strong enough against their second curse." Luffy spoke calmly down to the two pieces of Kuzan that tried to pull themselves together but were instead withering on the ground as if a worm had been bisected. Robin couldn't believe what just happened. Nobody has ever taken an admiral by surprise or at least matched them in speed. The admirals were the unstoppable powers of the Navy, that only the strongest pirates can ever hope to match. Where are the odds that she will find one? Especially one willing to stare down a certain admiral just to protect her? And somehow, the sight of Kuzan helpless to get himself up felt reliving. Was it her sadistic streak or something else? "Everyone, this battle cannot be contained anymore. Kuzan will be willing to kill all of us to get to Robin. Bring her to the ship and keep an eye out for the ice. Do not let it reach the king's gourd," Luffy ordered in a single breath. Necessary for the circumstances. And for once, Sanji did not try to shove his weight around to handle Robin. Alvida was the one to get Robin off the ground while the boys occupied the girls as they fled to their ship. And when they were out of eyesight, Luffy turned to see Kuzan finally and literally putting himself back together. And for a lazy man, he had quite the ugly scowl. "Even the Buddha's patience has limits and I just ran out. Brace yourself, brat." But there is only a few that Luffy is truly scared off, and that doesn't include this. Last time it was Shanks, and now, Luffy simple turned with his blades out with his skin letting off steam yet again. It is my turn. At the King's Gourd, Big Brother is fighting that monster by himself. Zoro scoffed while Snuggy let out of a huff. A stubborn attempt to not show the weakness they saw concern to be. But Robin could tell that they were worried. How could you just leave him there? Not even God Eneru had half the signature as that tall man back there. Iso was hysterical despite Nami and Nijiko trying to calm her down. We were nothing but a horde of flies to that Marine Admiral. Jin spoke up, remembering that same feeling of unmeasurable strength from a single man from when he encountered Mihawk ages ago. Luffy wants to make sure that we are not caught in the crossfires, and as the captain, he has to think of us more than himself. I know that is what he is doing right now. Meanwhile, on the grass field that was covered with steaming ice. Ha, ha, Kuzan panted slowly while he tried to stop the blood dripping down his arm. His ice was only helping with the pain and the wound wasn't closing for some reason. Well, you are certainly quite the wild card. Luffy himself looked ragged too, with a few spots covered with ice that gave off white steam. The pirate captain didn't say a word, and continued to glare at his foe. To lose his guard now will be suicide. Alright. The Iceman managed to get back up and conjured up another ice blade. One more blow to the finish. Kuzan moved in, apparently not expecting an answer, and neither did Luffy, who also charged for the kill. In the half second, both of them met was enough to crack open the ground with the earth frozen over. Luffy reappeared and fell to the ground, ice on his right kneecap and over a wound on his side. And when Kuzan emerged, he only got to one knee with an open cut. I take back what I said, you really were worthy to replace Crocodile. Kuzan simply brushed the cut with his ice, while still flinching to the stain. Now that you have made a mockery out of me and delayed my hunt, I will now have to answer to the boss. Thanks for wrecking my day, kid. With that said, the Admiral vanished in a bundle of ice. All the while, Luffy glared back at that spot with a hand on his head as if he was having a killer migraine. He whispered something too soft to hear while clutching the side of his face tightly and tensely. Soon enough, Luffy got back to his feet, returned his blade to its scabbard and lost his steaming form. He was still exhausted and nerve-wrecked from the experience, so Luffy just walked all the way over to the ship, using the signatures on board to guide his way. Once it was in sights, Luffy jumped right onto the railing with the leap of a champion rabbit. And once he landed, a crowd formed around him and latched on like he was a lifeline. Luffy, we were so worried, we thought you were killed. Easy guys, that was not what that guy had in mind. Luffy spoke up to comfort his scared fans. Nami, Usopp, Chopper and Iso won't let go, while Robin seemed to not care about that. Not to mention, Sanji won't have it either. Kuzan just wanted to say how he appreciated Crocodile being kicked out of the Shichibuki ranks. He's now on his way to headquarters to answer to the fleet admiral, Sengoku. That got everyone at ease a bit, while Chopper asked for himself and Isa. She is still learning about the surface world. What is a fleet admiral? I thought there were only 3 of them, right? Luffy rubbed his little brother to assure him, chuckling that Isa wanted some of that affection. The captain got the same grim look on his face. One that always said, I don't want to repeat, so listen up. Sengoku, the Buddha, is the marine that all answer to. Aside from being close friends with a certain old man we all know, they both were key figures during the time of Gold Roger. If you think that Kuzan was a monster, Sengoku is more than match for just one admiral. It will take all 3 of them to make that Titan fight hard. Luffy said all in one breath. Understandably, this made a few of them tense. Relax, I doubt that Sengoku will bother with us. He has too much trouble back home as it is. Maybe that is why he is always grouchy. Luffy said that casually enough to be ridiculous. This was the head honcho of the Marines that can order around the admirals, for crying out loud. Now Sanji, Luffy turned to the cook, still shaking with rage and envy. I believe that some snacks are in order, and I know that Robin will like a cup of coffee. In a split second, Sanji lost his anger and ran into the kitchen with hearts in his eyes. XXXXX soon, dawn came and it was time to make sure of their course. By this time, the Straw Hats had gotten used to how chaotic and mostly unpredictable the Grand Line can be. But their captain made sure of 2 things. 1. Never lower your guard, not even in paradise, and 2. Increase their training in case they do run into another Marine Admiral. They understood that Kuzan was usually the one to try and avoid conflict, so they had a lucky break. The other 2 will not. Right now, the unpredictable Grand Line had actually taken a rest, so the weather is fair. Just in time for Luffy to allow his crew to take a breather. A few like Zoro were taking their naps in the warm sun, while some like Nami were soaking it in on their beach chairs. Sanji was being himself and offered some snacks to the ladies. Robin was feeling like having some coffee. Hey guys. Usopp was on lookout, one of his favorite places on the ship. I see a building up ahead that looks like a train station. Luffy took out a spyglass and got a good look. He had a smile grow on his lips. Very train station. Those people working there could help us find the way to Water 7. Luffy turned to see that his crew had the look on their faces again. Yeah? What do you mean, sea train? XXXXX. Once the King's Gourd got a bit closer to the station. Wow. I can see train tracks through the ocean water. Chopper and Isa shouted off with cute kid voices filled with excitement and amazement. How did they do this, big brother? I haven't got all the details, but apparently these tracks are extremely buoyant as they won't sink, even with the weight of a train loaded with cargo and passengers. Luffy responded. Water 7 is not only famous in the Grand Line for its carpenters and craftsmen but also for this train system. We may even take one to St. Puller, as Shanks said over the phone. Luffy muttered that last sentence under his breath. Wait, there is also a giant frog, don't the front crawl? Usopp called out, and soon, everyone was saying that same sentence exactly. Luffy looked a bit annoyed, and not just with this mimicking act. Yokozuna. Get over here now. Luffy let out a roar that shook the ocean, something fierce, and got the frog to freeze in mid-front crawl. Not to mention that it scared the entire crew shitless. When the massive amphibian came to the front where Luffy was impatiently tapping his foot. How many times do I have to tell you to stop challenging the train? Even I wasn't that reckless before. The giant frog looked down in shame, not even noticing that Umi was out and about after hearing that roar. After one good scolding, Luffy stopped with a sigh. Still, I am glad that we ran into you. We need to speak with Kokura about getting our ship into Water 7. It is finally that time. The frog nodded and started to do the front crawl but towards the station. Hey, someone turned the ship portside and then straight. Luffy was still in a bad mood and didn't even bother to turn to face his crew, still a bit frightened by this sudden change in character. Chopper wanted to help ease up his big brother despite the freight and move the steering wheel in his human form. Isa wanted to help but couldn't do just as much. Once they got within docking distance, Luffy jumped ship to land on the base. Come on guys, we need to get those directions and try not to stare. This old lady was there when the sea train was first made and even saw the Oro Jackson being built. A few others followed their captain just in time to hear. Na ga 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 ga. I see that our friend the idiot frog has turned the little youngster sour. Hick. Out came an old lady with long thick ponytails, a grin that looked frozen on her face and even smelled drunk. You're looking good for yourself, youngster. You even got your own ship. Hick. Luffy had something of a grin through his frown. If you are going to get drunk on us, I wish that you will have some good taste. Luffy responded, rudely swiping the old lady's wine bottle and dumped the rest of it into the ocean. There, try it now. The old lady took a swipe and let out a mighty breath, looking just a bit sober. Good stuff, youngster, thanks, and she drank away. The Straw Hats couldn't believe that she could be quite the drunk at her age and not to mention her waistline. Is that you, big brother? I heard you angry at Yokozuna. That really scared me and my cat. Luffy turned to see a little girl with a blue-furred rabbit truly looking scared. This made the captain feel guilty. Yeah, sorry about that, Chimney. It's nice to see you again. Luffy made a real grin and rubbed the little girl on the head. Chimney is a young and vibrant girl. She wears her green hair in pigtails that always seem to stand upward, and are puffy at the end, along with sandals and a short white shirt over a striped dress, of orange and red stripes. And when she let out a giggle at the sign of affection, it didn't please a certain reindeer and a girl from the sky one bit. Hey, Luffy is our big brother. Both of them grabbed Luffy by the waist and pulled him away from Chimney like she had the plague. OWW, nevertheless, the captain did not appetite that bout of overprotectiveness. I don't want any arguments from you two. Chimney is a girl that means no harm and you are to not to bully her. I understood. Chopper and Isa were scared again and nodded again, not wanting to see Luffy get into a slump again. The old lady, whose name was Kokura, got sober enough to give a letter to give the mayor of Water 7. Apparently, they used to drink out a few times. It was also apparent that this man was not only in charge of the city but also the best shipbuilder among the dozens employed in his carpentering company. Let's just say that this guy was beloved by everyone who lives in Water 7. XXXXX. Soon enough, by following the tracks and making sure that their giant cargo was not lagging behind, the Straw Hats have arrived at Water 7. It was like a giant palace floating in the ocean. Hello there, are you pirates? A fisherman called out, and the senior members remember a certain island that appeared to be friendly to pirates. They wished not to relive that experience. Luffy merely pointed out to their flag and sails that showed their Jolly Roger. Oh. Then please take the entrances over there. The others are for marine and merchant ships, so don't get them confused. And what's that behind you? We love to hunt for treasure and we hit the jackpot on the last island. Enough said and thank you for the directions. Luffy responded and both vessels turned portside to where pirate ships were to be docked. This time, it was not a scam or a tourist trap. It is just that Water 7 cares for a ship to make her fix, whether be a pirate ship or otherwise. Soon enough, hello there, pirates. How can we help you on such a fine day? A pack of carpenters appeared. One of them was a massive man with a bare torso and a bag filled with tools on his back. Another wore sunglasses and had an annoying cowlick that will reappear every time he pushed it down. Finally, The other was dressed like a biker with a couple of lit cigars in his mouth. Are you here for repairs? Actually, Luffy said and jumped down, with the rest of his crew following. We have a rather tall order. The carpenters looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders. Can you build us a new ship around the same size or bigger than our main one? But made entirely out of atom wood? Now the trio were shocked-eyed. The biker even dropped his cigars. Well, the one with the cowlick, named Peeply Lulu, tried to find the words to respond. The thing is, the big fellow, Tilestone, had his own annoying habit of shouting loudly into other people's ears, and he too was lost for a response. We can, but we will have to get the boss to decide. The biker, Polly, said with confidence. After all, atom wood could only be bought on the black market if you already known. And even if you can find that much, it will be quite expensive. We will worry about the costs later. Can it be done? Luffy intervened and the trio looked at each other before nodding. Then can I ask that you bring the King's Gourd to where you can work on it while telling us where we can trade our treasure for cash? The trio just pointed into the distance. Thanks. Luffy then went over to the smaller vessel and caused the three carpenters to finally faint when they saw the giant golden pillar underneath the cloth. Want to come along for a ride? I promise that it will be gentle. Luffy spoke in a tone that was somehow seductive, and Nami wasted no time to jump, or just appear, on top of the pillar that the captain was holding up with just one hand. After all the crazy and impossible feats, the Straw Hats were hardly surprised. Chopper and Isa wanted to come along for a ride too. Precious little children they are. And Najiko still wanted to make sure that her little sister doesn't get carried away. She did disguise that with the intent to look after Isa. Nevertheless, all of them had to hold on tight when Luffy sprung into the air. Hairu. Geppo, Moonwalk. Luffy kicked at the air with enough force to not only keep himself afloat but also a pillar weighing a few tons plus the passengers. That scared all of his witnesses. Both his crew and the citizens watching from the streets. A couple of kids called out to Luffy as flying like a bird, and even called out to ride too before their parents silenced them. Soon enough, a bank was in sight, but what got Luffy's attention was the massive crowd forming in front of it. When he descended softly, the flock backed off to make way. Once Luffy put the pillar down on the ground, gently, look but do not touch, okay? Of course, Sir Luffy. The police were there too and formed a perimeter to keep anyone from getting too close for comfort with the massive find. Don't get smug, I have bigger plans to be a government dog. Luffy wished that he could say that out loud but settled to a mutter. Now can someone from the bank please come up and do the math for how much this thing is worth? And you better be honest. My girlfriend can see through any lie when it came to money. Luffy said that last part with Nami snuggling in but not before letting out a growl to prove the captain's point. The bank tellers from the crowd took a loud gulp before taking measurements of the pillar. After a while, they all came to a conclusion. 10 billion berries. Usopp let out a shriek that was heard throughout the city and the crowds all started to repeat that exact statement. Luffy was just rubbing his chin, holding up his girlfriend that was on the verge of passing out. Damn, that's worth more than a Yonko and its crew put together. All in one package. Of course, everyone ignored that remark as they were either focused on the giant gold pillar or the amount the professionals announced it to be. Then, everyone demanded that Luffy, the generous Shichibuki, to share the money with them. Enough? With some intimidation, the crowds were silenced. Now then, I can't share any of this just yet. I will need the word of the big boss, right Mayor Iceberg? Correct, Sir Luffy. A man responded and the crowds cheered for him, as if a superstar walking on the open stage. Iceberg is a tall man with blue hair and similarly colored lips. He wears a red and orange striped jacket over an unbuttoned orange shirt with a wide collar, black suit pants and black shoes. I happen to be the mayor and head of the Galila company, so I basically run the entire island. How about cutting the amount in half and give one of them to us? Iceberg suddenly felt like a rabid dog tried to bite his face off until its owner grabbed hold of the collar. Easy Nami, he is just relaxed. Luffy calmly said, holding back his girlfriend who was not happy one bit of handing over 5 billion berries to a stranger. And I think that we can share some of the money as we don't need the weight sinking our new ship. What about giving away a fourth of the money instead? Nami ceased her aggressive behavior and settled for a pout. Fine. But I still don't like it. Nami looked like a 5-year-old girl watching her old clothes that no longer fit being given away. How about we spend the day shopping once we sort out the paperwork? We can even take your sister, Chopper and Isa along. Luffy offered to cheer her up. Nami looked away with a pout still, but then Luffy whispered something in her ear that made her tomato red on the face. If you like. Okay. Nami lost her pout and no longer crossed her arms in a huff. She even gave Luffy a quick kiss that grossed out the younger at heart watching. The grown-ups though that Luffy was a genius on how to settle down an angry girlfriend. The couples wrote down notes on how to be that close together. XXXXX. And while everyone was elsewhere, doing their errands or watching the Going Merry, Robin was walking throughout Water 7 taking in the nice weather. But then her instincts told her that she was being watched. But Robin couldn't spot anyone watching her, not even with her powers. Just as she was going to continue on her way, to settle her nerves, a large figure wearing a heavy cloak and wore a mask to conceal their identity had passed her. And that figure spoke these words, "I am with CP9. Those words were enough to make Robin freeze and have terror in her eyes. She turned to see that the figure had vanished without a trace, but it was enough to bring tears to her eyes. And while everyone was elsewhere, doing their errands or watching the going merry, Robin was walking throughout Water 7 taking in the nice weather. But then her instincts told her that she was being watched. But Robin couldn't spot anyone watching her, not even with her powers. Just as she was going to continue on her way, to settle her nerves, a large figure wearing a heavy cloak and wore a mask to conceal their identity had passed her. And that figure spoke these words, "I am with CP9. Those words were enough to make Robin freeze and have terror in her eyes. She turned to see that the figure had vanished without a trace, but it was enough to bring tears to her eyes. Why are we here? This place is a dump." While Usopp and a few others stayed at the Going Merry, they were still happy to hear that their main ship will be getting an upgrade after all. The only concern is that the Galila company is hesitate to provide the materials. Luffy was able to strike up a deal. The Straw Hats will be given the location where the black market is, they buy the wood and the company will use them on the King's Gourd with nothing connecting them to the purchase of illegal goods. The Straw Hats will get their new and improved ship of their design built ready for the new world, and Water 7 will have clean hands in the face of the world government. Right now, Sanji just complained about being dragged out in the middle of nowhere, and while everyone mumbled in agreement, Robin was silent and unsure. She was this way ever since that encounter with a whisper and a costumed figure in the alleyway. "I understand, Sanji, and we won't be here long. Just to meet a certain man that will help with our ships." "Both of them," Luffy responded. "Now come on. I can't stand the look either. No arguments there. Look, it's the Straw Hat Pirates. Their captain is the Liber Glade, a Shichibuki, 7 warlords of the sea." After letting themselves in, the door revealed several crazy characters that looked like bums wearing cannonballs. "What are you here for?" "To meet your boss. Is he in?" Luffy answered them politely and with a smile that spoke, "Answer or else." It didn't take long for a pair of doors inside the ugly building to open with a roar. "You better not have hurt any of my brothers, Liber Glade." The man walked out and stopped just a foot from Luffy. "Now why did you want to see the boss of the dark side of Water 7? "I wanted to meet the other student that learned under Tom, who calls himself Frankie." Luffy pulled his usual trick of reading minds. By then, his crew were used to it while enjoying the looks on the faces around them for a change. XXXXX Frankie is a powerfully built man with a height of at least 7 feet. His forearms are relatively enormous while his biceps are comparably small. His chest is well toned with large abs and pectoral muscles. He has brightly colored blue hair and blue star tattoos on his forearms. Frankie's eyebrows are rather long and stern, and he has 3 prominent lower matsuge on each eye. His chin is very angular and tapers off in 3 pointed clefts. Frankie has an equally angular prosthetic nose made of iron with several rivets and jagged edges, the only thing not covered with artificial skin. And right now, he is glaring at Luffy with both shock and anger. "I have heard about a pirate apprentice that has sold out countless secrets, from criminal gangs to entire kingdoms. Now quit reading my mind." Luffy only shook his head. "You need to empty your mind more often or else keep those gay thoughts to yourself." The pirate captain responded coolly and his crew chuckled at Frankie's embarrassed look. "But we do need to talk because I have an offer that you have waited years to hear." "Out with it," Frankie finally said with his face mad red still. "I have a ship made in the East Blue that has made it here so far but won't last in the New World. We have enough money for atom wood with plenty left over." Luffy started and then shook Frankie's whirlwind. "I want you to make your dream ship with the wood and our main vessel as an understudy." The Straw Hats hid their shock, hoping that their captain knows what he is doing. All Frankie could hear was, "You make your dream ship." Time seemed to slow down with that statement echoing. But the large man shook his head. "First you walk in my home like you own it, threaten my family and now lie to me. My dream died when that idiot got run over by a freaking train. Besides, I am not a shipwright anymore. I am a bounty hunter, a criminal, a dismantler. I don't make ships. I take them apart to sell the scraps." "You went to the wrong man." No one else said a word. Something told them that there was no need for words and Frankie saw that none of them were backing down. I mean it." Frankie raised a hand to his face, almost blocking the tears that were flowing. This showed that there was a heart somewhere in that metal body. "I gave up on my dream and I wanted to just fade away, someone that will just rot away without anyone ever bothering." "Why do you want me to work on your ship?" "Because Tom did say that there should never be shame in building a ship, even if a criminal uses it." Luffy answered. Then he motioned for Zoro to move forward with a massive black case in hand. After the long process of converting the gold to berries, the 10 billion was sorted evenly into 10 large cases. Half of those were entrusted under Iceberg's hand as goodwill to the city while the other half was for the Straw Hats. Even Nami wasn't greedy enough to place 10 billion berries in bills that will no doubt sink a ship. and Zoro opened his to reveal the money for the bums and Frankie to see. I know that you are aware where the market will be, so get all the atom wood you can find, this should cover it. Frankie just grabbed the case when Zoro closed it shut. You're one super great boy. He mumbled. I will make not just my dream ship but one of which you never seen before, Straw Hat. Come guys, we have a train to catch. XXXXX later, at the Going Merry, if I didn't know you for this long, Luffy, I would think you were a madman. Usopp stated, hiring a criminal to work on our new and improved ship because he worked under a master carpenter years ago. Just what was the big deal about this Tom character? That was the question going through everyone's heads. And they knew that Luffy had got it from Frankie's open head. Tom is a fishman, a blowfish fishman, as well as the carpenter that built the Oro Jackson. The very ship that carried Roger to the end of the Grand Line and became the king. Luffy responded and loved the looks of shock on his friends. And Frankie can deny it with his very fiber, but as an apprentice to the world's best shipbuilder with a dream, he is still the best man to make us a ship to sail the new world. After a few moments of silence, Kuro spoke up. It is obvious that we can just pick up his signature should that man does return with his new wood. But can we be sure that he will keep his promise? That was a trick question, so Luffy didn't even try to give an answer. Only this. From what I got from the mayor, it takes a day or two to make a trip with the sea train to St. Polar to find the market and get back with the atom wood. I will suggest that we simply take a rest from sailing for a while. Luffy stated with authority as the captain. And if Frankie does try to run out on our deal, we give him hell. Sadistic smiles grew on everyone's faces at the sight of that sad man in a Speedo down on the ground with countless bruises and cuts. By the way, anyone seen where Robin went? XXXXX. Somewhere on the shoreline where the Going Merry was docked. Why did I run? Robin was not feeling too well and stopped at a boulder, questioning herself. Her eyes were crying to point blank. Why can't I just decide? Why can't anything be easy for just once? Well, crying never solves anything, it just grabs attention. Robin almost felt her heart jump out of her chest, turning to see her captain in person. I had a feeling there was she city to make you act like this. So, what's the trouble? Why should I tell you? Robin retorted. Your problem just another clone because I can smell the revolting mess of alcohols easily. The real captain wears strong cologne instead. Robin hoped that no one will hear that last statement. But knowing Luffy, it was heard anyways. The boss was not trying to fool you, Robin. You know that he will be happy to help out. The clone didn't even try to deny the accusation. Nor did it react when a dozen hands and arms placed it into a full body hold. Please Robin, tell us. Even if it is the whole world, your friends will still fight for you. That's a promise. Robin never encountered any creature like this and gritted her teeth hard. Fine, she said after a moment that went on forever. I am going to be killed with their own promise to not harm them. Robin walked over to the clone's ear. Cipher Pole 9. That was followed by the echoing sound of a neck and limbs snapping, right before the sound of a splash. XXXXX back on the Going Merry, Cipher Pole 9. Luffy suddenly spoke up and that got everyone's attention. I am surprised that they would be here. Water 7 is just doing what they do best, even if they accept pay from pirates. Luffy began to mumble so low that it was difficult to make out. What's Cipher Pole 9, big brother? Chopper asked that brought the captain out of his stupor. I mean, is it bad? You look serious and only when things are bad you do that. Almost the whole crew nodded in agreement and Luffy let out a sigh. First, have you all been keeping up with your Rokushiki, 6 powers, training? This time, everyone stood to attention and all answered affirmative with confidence, which relieved Luffy a bit. Good, because Cipher Pole 9 or CP9 are very dangerous. They are a group of undercover intelligence gathering officers that are also trained killers. They investigate cases assigned in secrecy and should they be told to assassinate, they can carry that out effectively. They all are Rokushiki masters. That last one was a bombshell. But Luffy was just getting started. I also heard about their ace, Rob Lucci. He is a Rokushiki prodigy and I heard that when a certain kingdom was taken over by pirates, the captain demanding to be made king, Lucci killed off all 500 of the guards used as hostages. And when the pirates tried to fire cannonballs at his back, those only left a scar. His power is known even to the Shichibuki. Luffy finished and looked at Chopper as well as Isa who looked frightened. Why did this Lucci guy kill the guards? Why didn't he kill the pirates? It was pointless to not hide concepts of murder from a girl that walked in the middle of a war and even felt lives cut off. Nami and her sister still wanted to shield the little girl but Luffy somehow talked them into trusting that Isa could live with learning death already. My guess is that because Lucci follows the brutal, dark justice, he decided to remove the hostages from the pirates so the Marines could free the country without anything in their way. It was cruel and bloody but it did work. Luffy took it nice and slow to explain it. And these CP9 people won with this for Robin-san? Kuro was not longer a captain but still the genius once feared back in the East Blue. It didn't take long for him to actually pull that together. And they are after Robin for her ability to read the Poneglyphs and possibly find the ancient weapons. Correct, and that is why I must ask that in the event they succeed in seizing Robin, you all must be ready to face killers that are trained in all aspects of Rokushiki. As captain, can I ask my crew to do such a selfish order? No one said a word, yet the look on their faces spoke. We are with you for life, Captain. XXXXX. The next morning was one that will be remembered for ages, for all the residents of Water 7. But for the Straw Hats, they were prepared for this. And it all started when Iceberg woke up in his bed to see a cloaked pair exit the wall of his bedroom. The larger figure actually opened the wall like it was a door in the shape of himself, and closed it as if untouched. I ate the doa doa no mi, door fruit. I can make a door out of anything. Taking out a gun, the figure pointed it at the mayor. Now that the two of us have your undivided attention, we ask that you hand over those plans. Before Iceberg could respond. That won't be necessary. They all turned to a certain pirate sitting comfy in the open window. After all, what you want is not here. Luffy smiled to the masked figure, shaking in anger, shock or fear or all the above. The large man tried to find the words. This has nothing to do with you, Liber Glade. This is government official business and we don't share even with the Shichibuki. Luffy just chuckled. Of course. That is not my beef, it is with you taking Robin as your date and considering your day job. You make us bartenders look bad. Luffy responded and, in a split second, unmasked the large man, and Iceberg recognized him as Bluno, who ran one of his favorite bars. The man shredded the costume after his bear mask was removed. Bluno is a tall man with big lips, a black beard, and black hair in which his hairstyle resembles the horns of a bull. He wore a black two-piece suit with white handkerchief in his breast pocket and a sweater undershirt. Don't think that we at CP9 know about your annoying ability to read minds, Mugiwara, Straw Hat. I am only here because I happen to like the mayor and this old town does too. He is one of a billion, you know, Luffy responded, not even bothering to correct Bluno of that old assumption that everyone seems to be making. I also happen to want Robin back because we are still planning to leave soon as our new ship is built. I even hired Iceberg's closest equal shipbuilder to build it without any strings stuck to that stuff coat of his. Frankie, why would you want to pay that pervert anything? We are to your ship just fine, Iceberg shouted off, feeling a little scandalized. I am sure that we can make a ship for the new world just fine. And you will, after our wood arrives from St. Puller. Luffy retorted with a bit of annoyance. Robin couldn't believe all of this was happening. She still didn't say a word and tried to keep an empty mind while her captain was within 10 meters of her. I am afraid that your order will be cancelled as we are also aware of your fellow apprentice, Cutty Flam. He will be going with us as well as Nico Robin. Bluno spoke with a calmer tone. Iceberg was shocked to hear that, while Luffy had a nagging feeling that it was going to happen soon enough. Then the double doors to the bedroom burst open. You're too slow, Bluno. We already searched the entire mansion. The blueprints are not here. A young walked through the cloud of smoke and halted when he saw that there was one more person present. Monkey D. Mugiwara. Luffy, the Liber Glade and member of the Shichibuki. Got to say that I actually respected your handling of evil even before becoming a dog of the government. And do I get to meet my number one fan, the ace of CP9 himself? Rob Lucci? Luffy responded, and the look on the young man's face confirmed it. Rob Lucci is a tall and slim, yet muscular man with arched eyebrows and a close-shaved goatee. He has shoulder-length wavy hair that is sometimes tied in a ponytail. He had a white pigeon perched on his shoulder, not that he seems to mind. He wore a two-piece black suit with the sleeves normally rolled up, complete with black leather shoes and a white tie and handkerchief in the breast pocket. Now if you don't mind, we have places to be and the demon child is coming with us. Bluno, deal with him. Just as Lucci turned his back, he heard the sound of bones snapping and a grown man screaming. Turning his head for a bit, he saw Bluno on the ground and clutching his hand. Only a fool will hurry to his death, Luffy stated, and Lucci saw that Bluno's index finger was both crushed and bent out of shape. It won that to kill me, if you are up for it. Luffy spoke to Lucci, his words thickening the atmosphere, and the ace killer felt fur grow around his backside. Enough, Robin broke character and shouted out, yet that got everyone's attention. I don't want to go back, Captain San. I am a demon child and I am tired of running. Just by standing here, I am threatening everyone in the world. I need to do this and die for my sins. Robin stopped to pant. Lucci was grinning. Bluno was still in pain. Iceberg was speechless and Luffy was not fooled. He knew that Robin was not really wanting to go with these killers but had to hide it like she did for 20 years. Please, I need to do this. Everywhere and everyone I gone suffered and hated me. You will be next. She is right, Mugiwara. Lucci stepped in. She is evil incarnate and you will thank us for getting rid of such scum. The world will be safer once you let us finish this simple job. Luffy still said nothing. It will be my pleasure to carry out my style of justice, dark justice. Once Lucci grasped Robin's arm tightly, he felt another hand grab his wrist with the force of a vice grip. First tell me something. Luffy spoke deeply, and when Lucci didn't respond. When I first arrived here, I noticed that you and your little gang of killers had your key on Iceberg. Were you ordered to kill him, or were you going to kill him as you preferred to carry out your missions? Don't tell me that you were going to assassinate a truly beloved figure for your government, were you? Lucci gritted his teeth, not liking what he heard. There are some of us that still believe in putting our duty to the just government first. The ace killer finally answered, and this made both Robin and Iceberg shocked. They couldn't believe that the world government will kill off their own people just to get their way. Sorry, but I don't see patriotism here, Luffy stated. All I see is a deranged psycho latching on an excuse to kill for pleasure and who is so indifferent, he doesn't care that he is being used by a certain cowardly moron. 1. Lucci had enough and sent a right kick to Luffy's head. But the pirate blocked it with his free hand and used his own leg to swipe at Lucci's. Lucci finally released his hold on Robin to catch his fall and then vanished in a blur. He attempted to use Shigen, finger pistol, at the back of Luffy's head, but the latter's reflexes allowed him to redirect that lethal jab to the bedroom floor. Recognizing that his foe will aim for his back, Lucci vanished again, yet Luffy did too. After some blows too fast for even Bluno to catch, it all ended when both fighters reappeared. Luffy drew his katana, Reimeitami, Don Pain, and has the blade pressing into Lucci's neck and both of his palms. I think that I have proved my point, Rob Lucci. So, finish it. The ace of CP9 was in a real corner with no way out, yet Luffy released him. Sorry, but that's too easy. Luffy responded, and Lucci glared at him. I intend to not cause a riot or a war in this lovely city. I and I are going to bring the fights to your turf to get Robin back. Until then, I will have your life on the line with this simple promise. Robin is not to be harmed. Lucci saw that his foe was not going to strike again and got back on his 2 feet. And why should we do you any favors? You may be one of the Shichibuki, but we obey only the government. Because there only no honor among thieves. Luffy answered. You all are too proud to be thieves, so you must proud of your sense of honor as well. I know that you people will keep a promise, while I can't say that for your pathetic director. Lucci and Bluno looked at each other. The latter finally got his finger at least back into place. Fine. We will give you our word on our honor. Just get ready to go through all of us if you want to keep the demon child. Lucci said, and both agents vanished with Robin, leaving Luffy and Iceberg in that room. Just what kind of pirate are you? The mayor could only ask, and Luffy just smiled before vanishing too. And that man got onto his feet and ran out of his bedroom while grabbing a coat. XXXXX, as if things were looking grim as it is. There was the yearly disaster coming that is known as Aqua Laguna. It is an extreme high tide that comes once every year, and usually the people can survive it with the construction of the city, allowing their homes to suffer minimal damage. The high levels also help the people themselves to escape the waters. The problem here was, hey, I don't remember the waves being that big last year. A civilian pointed out, literally, and the others agreed. Then a voice took them all by surprise. And I know why. Luffy had arrived and saw in full view of this disaster. We had an run-in with Kuzan, who made a pathway between 2 islands in a chain to help an old man find his nomadic tribe. There were some that didn't get the hidden message, but the rest widened their eyes. He was right. That thing did last a week, but the timing caused the waves bigger once the ice finally melted. This caused the rest of the civilians to start to panic. What do we do? Luffy growled in annoyance, trying to clear out his ear with his finger. Don't shout, I am right here. The civilians stopped in their screaming. I am sure that this one is just a one-time thing. Just make sure everyone stays inland as much as possible. Once it is done, you all will have your work cut out for you. This got them all into action, hurrying to spread the word and give the warning. They were so focused that they didn't notice the thunderbolt streaking across the rainfall or even the black blur zooming through the crowd. Both of these strange sights stopped where Luffy was standing, who didn't even raise an eyebrow. Instead, he looked like a general focused on the horizon. Is everything ready? Yes, Captain. Kuro, of course, appeared from the black blur while the thunderbolt revealed the navigator, who placed her head on Luffy's shoulder. This was something that both men were used to. My guess is that Robin still didn't want to come back, Nami said from her comfy spot. Luffy grimly nodded. Those 2 bastards from CP9 could care less as long as they are allowed to kill as part of their job. But I saw it in her eyes. Robin wants over 20 years of running in fear to end in anyway. Luffy responded, and both of his witnesses knew that tone very well. Who says that a scorned woman is the only person with hellish fury? This was a man who is ready to challenge the world if it means to get his friend back. Just say where we are going, because I will find the way and everyone else will make sure we arrive. Nami spoke up again, and Luffy adjusted his trademark treasured hat upwards a bit to show his eyes. They're filled with contained anger and undeniable focus. They are heading to one of the 3 main spots that connect to Marine headquarters and the inescapable Impel Down. Eni's lobby. It is called the Island Without Night and is where all criminals are taken to be judged. Luffy answered. And it is where Robin will be returned to us, through force if necessary.